But yeah, Migo is a Twitch streamer and he also plays Genshin and he loves the maths. So would you like to
Mm.
explain a little more on that?
Well, so you know how typically when players go into a game, the first thing that they probably do is one of two things. One, explore the game, have fun, typical stuff, right? Or two, instantly go into the spoilers section. What's the best build? How do you do this? How do you do that? So I think I started with that, and then I kind of just fell down into the rabbit hole of just learning pretty much the quote-unquote min-max life. So
I see.
that's how it kind of started. But for the more specific parts, mainly in my channel, what I do is I just try to search for knowledge, not necessarily preach that, hey, you're doing things wrong, you should do this, you should do that. No, no, no. What I do is just propose ideas, and if you like the ideas, you can go do them, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. You're making sure. Last time I hopped on your stream, you're a waifu over a meta player, right? Just
Oh
making
yeah,
sure.
definitely, definitely.
Okay, all right. And obviously, would you like to explain your chosen main, even though it seems pretty obvious here?
Right. So I think it's better if I explain how I got into playing Lisa to begin with. I started as a typical every other character main. Like I just played a bunch of random characters until I stumbled upon the Lisa mains guide from a website called Kuching Mains. They are generally the usual theorycrafting hub of the English-speaking community of Genshin Impact. And then I found out certain things that were not exclusively listed in her kit, and I generally enjoy hidden mechanics. So when I found out about those, I tried extending other things that she could do that normal people would not know. And then from there, I think it got me really amazed at how many people don't know these hidden mechanics. So I kind of just stuck with it.
So let me phrase it. How do I phrase this? In terms of Genshin, are you currently having fun with the game? Are you experiencing burnout,
Oh yeah,
or
most.
are you like kind of like more in the middle right now?
Oh, I personally, you know how a lot of the people in Genshin find themselves in a content drought? I think that's where the current situation of the game is right now. I personally don't ever find myself in a content drought. Mainly, so that is to say that I do enjoy the game. And I think the thing that makes me want to enjoy the game more is first you do the dailies, you do the resin and all that fancy stuff, but more so about the interaction with the community. So I have a Twitch chat, so on and so on. I think that Genshin is pretty enjoyable in many different levels. So in my Twitch chat, we have a bunch of mixed people. We have people that do just play from a casual aspect and just want to, see what it's like from a theory crafting side of things. And then there are people that are in the middle where they're not particularly theory crafters, but then they do, those people that look up the guides. And then on the extreme end, we also have the theory crafters. So I think it's enjoyable for me to have an exchange of ideas, see how other people play the game besides how I see it.
Mm-hmm. So, do you mind explaining to the chat and to everybody watching in this podcast later on in the future? Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and where your name actually originated from?
Oh, okay, alright, gotcha. So I'm generally just going by Migo. That's actually based off of my IRL nickname.
Mm-hmm.
I just go about it, but then anytime I go into platforms, so if I register into games, usernames, all that stuff, I generally don't have my own codename, so I just type in Migo, and then I end up, almost always I will end up finding that Migo is not available, so I add an underscore and then a random suffix to it. People, for those that have been stuck on my Twitch channel for a very long time, they've seen me rebrand about 2 or 3 times now. I lost count because I always keep changing the suffix, and then they always ask me, what does the suffix mean? And I'm like, nothing. I'm just adding a random character just to make the Migo available. But that's particularly why there is an underscore. But besides the origin of the channel, as for myself, I am your average person that's a working adult, and then Genshin to me, or streaming in general, is just a side thing that I do whenever I'm not working. I think it's like, you know how people have their hobbies, this one's mine.
Mm-hmm. So how much do you enjoy just streaming as a hobby in general?
Streaming as a hobby is pretty interactive to me, honestly, especially now that especially for the last 2 years, since we have been pretty much been staying indoors, or at least try to stay indoors for the most part. The interaction is really, really interesting to me because in my job, I do talk to a lot of people. So I have to physically meet them, have to get into calls with them, so on and so on. And not being able to meet people for the last 2 years is such a huge culture change in my general lifestyle, because that's not what I'm used to. I'm used to seeing people, and then, you know, the idea of streaming and being able to talk to people still is somewhat akin to what I used to do before COVID happened. So that's how I see it. Like, it's just an extension of interaction, basically. And I really like it. It's super chill. Everyone's having fun. You know, we're just talking about random stuff. And I mean, whenever I'm playing Genshin, sometimes my chat tells me that I'm not actually a Genshin streamer. I'm a just chatting streamer with Genshin in the background, because I just talk about the most random things in the universe. And I make random dad jokes as well, and everyone just like spams emojis of hate and whatnot.
I don't know. I think that's personally fine. You know, you're still talking about Genshin, but you don't have to
Generally,
be
yeah.
like, you don't have to be like necessarily like playing Genshin to be like doing Genshin, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's true.
And chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I can always ask Migo and Prixivis. Welcome to the Twitch stream as well. How are you doing? Is he or she from your stream?
He's from my community. I don't have the Twitch chat open at the moment, so Prixivis. I also send a YouTube link if you want to move on there. But I got asked, are you excited for 2.6? I think that's the... How do I put it? I'm very excited for it because first and foremost, it's literally 1 day before my birthday. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. And then there's that. And then for 2.6 in general, my chat asks me about the most meta question in the universe about Genshin Impact. So I have a lot of things to talk about it besides the story, character design, and everything, Ayato coming out and all that stuff. One of the more common questions in the meta side of things is Venti or Kazuha. I think for those of you that are Genshin players, you guys may have asked yourself that question multiple times as well. So I'm pretty excited because I know that we basically have been hyping up certain maths that will be coming out, especially with the new sets and stuff. So I've been getting those questions. How are the new set? How are these characters? So on and so on. Keep telling them, wait for 2.6. I will tell you everything when it comes out. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Are you going to be getting any of the new characters, or are you excited for anyone?
I'm definitely getting Ayato. Mm-hmm. From a meta standpoint, because usually, right, there are two sides to the community: the ones that just enjoy characters just from a aesthetical perspective, and then those that do enjoy from a meta standpoint. Me, from an aesthetical standpoint, dude, he's a quick draw user of the sword. I think the Japanese term for it is iaido, wherein they just like really quickly draw the sword. It stems from this one anime, Demon Slayer. I don't know if you guys have heard it. I don't know if you guys have heard it.
Yeah.
So there's this one character there. His name is Zenitsu, wherein I think he's a lightning breather user.
Yeah, he is.
The thing that I like about that breathing style specifically is also the iaido, wherein they kind of just draw the sword very quickly and then sheath it also very quickly. Mm-hmm. Well, I think his introductory episode in that the episode in that anime where he basically fell asleep and then just like quick drew someone to death like a demon. Yeah, that scene, if you guys know him on that one. Right. So I'm a huge fan of that aspect of katana anime and manga. So I really like Ayato from a design perspective, especially when they showed the character preview in the 2.6 live stream. So yeah, from the design standpoint, I'm very, very excited about that one. From a meta standpoint, my three favorite elements in the game, I think this comes as no surprise, is first and foremost Electro, second is Hydro, and then third is Animal, because of a very specific interaction between the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Wherein, typically, right, you know how everyone... Like, Genshin is basically, to me, an emulation of Pokemon as well, so you have elements or types in Pokemon, so on and so on. The thing with Pokemon is that reactions or movesets are only interactive in a 1-to-1 ratio, wherein if you hit a fire Pokemon with a Hydro move, it's super effective, so on. So it's basically a 1-to-1 interaction, kind of. Genshin Impact, you have reactions where three different elements are working together at the same time, and one of those would be Anemo, Hydro, and Electro. So that's why I am excited for Ito from a meta standpoint as well.
So as someone who is more of because I'm more on the casual perspective of it, but do you mind explaining more about what is theory crafting and just, for example, how you calculate how to do the most amount of damage, etc.
Of course.
Yeah.
For theory crafting in general, to me, I can also separate them into two types. One is just the hardcore meta lovers, wherein I generally define meta as an acronym that means the most effective tactic available. So when you're encountering certain content and you need a strategy for it, the meta is there for you. And then there's the side of theory crafting, wherein the goal is to literally just search for knowledge. Like, we don't particularly care if a character is meta. We just want to see, how does this character work? What do you need to do in order to make them do damage? And I think I'm on that side of the fence, wherein, say, like, for all intents and purposes, I am playing Lisa. And she's generally labeled as one of the weaker characters in the game, and I completely agree. She's not particularly strong, she's not for everyone, so on and so on, but I just got, as I mentioned, right, how I got into Lisa is that I found that she has hidden mechanics. Now, I don't particularly care if those mechanics are extremely strong or extremely weak. I just find it enjoying that, hey, there's this character with hidden mechanics, and I'd like to know more. So that one statement of I'd like to know more is where theory crafting comes in, where we try to examine things from a very technical perspective, sometimes involving heavy numbers, sometimes involving extreme amounts of testing, wherein I think one of the things that I did before was I was testing something, and then this is on the extreme side, please don't do this for your own sanity. I was doing one specific abyss floor, and I did it for 7 hours straight, just because I really wanted to see if something worked. I was asking, do you have any Lisa conflict? I do have her at C3, yes. But yeah, so, testing and numbers, so on and all that stuff is what theory crafting is generally known for. What was your other question, if I may ask? I forgot. Sorry, I got lost in my thoughts.
I think it was, I'm trying to remember, because I asked you about theory crafting.
Oh, then I remember now. You're asking how we calculate the numbers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Generally, you can do it with there are a lot of modern Genshin calculators nowadays, and like, compared to, say, a year and a half ago, when Genshin first came out in 2020, the math of the game has been more fleshed out. We've had a better understanding of the game ever since it came out. There are still a lot of misconceptions that are circulating around, but I think that's perfectly fine, because personally, I don't think that people should math out something down to the finest detail. I think that people should just get a general idea, and then once you get a general idea of what to do, you're good to go, right? Like, you can play the game, you can enjoy the game. Like, I don't think that the game is particularly hard enough that you also have to keep up to date with the latest information about the numbers of the game. So as to how we do the calculations, for myself, I just use my own sheets. It's basically just the Google Sheets. Some people use more advanced technology. We have the Genshin Optimizer that a lot of people have been using, and in fact, it's if you, I think that's the best starting point from a theory crafting standpoint. Like, if you want to try to get into the math of the game, there's the Genshin Optimizer, which basically does the math for you and tells you hey, this is your best artifact for this character, you should probably use it, right?
Mhm.
7 hours straight, yeah, I was testing something. Anyway, yeah, the math of the game is, to me, well, at least on my end, it seems to me that it's very straightforward, because it's just the same mathematical formula over and over and over, just explored in different segments. So, for example, you have characters like Raiden Shogun, wherein she has a lot of things going on for her kit. She converts her energy recharge into damage percent. She has, the attack, the crit, everything that comes with a character's kit. As opposed to someone like Razor, for example, where all he cares about is just attack, damage, crit, and then you kind of just left click with them, right? So, there are characters that are a bit more complicated to math out, but generally speaking, they all follow the same formula. And for the most part, to me, they're very, very simple to explain without me having to mention the numbers. So yeah, there's a lot of also that's something also that's also particularly why I have to clarify to everyone. Come on, guys, I am a Lisa main for crying out loud. I'm not particularly a meta slave. I just do the maths just so to satisfy my cravings, so that I know how to play this team, this character, so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about how we calculate the numbers.
And we have one of my mods on my Discord, Zed. He said, as a Mona main here I can relate with this mindset. People seem to automatically think that if you're min-maxing stuff, that you're automatically a meta slave. And just because someone likes maximizing their character's damage doesn't mean that they're a meta slave. They could just enjoy the most out of their character, which I do agree with, definitely. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I completely agree with this. Okay, so there's, like I said, right, different people enjoy different things about the game. Some people just enjoy things from an aesthetical perspective. Some people just want to see their characters at their best. Some people just want to see the biggest number on their screen regardless of the character. So I think that, different people enjoy different things. That's my initial thought on it. And I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was. And that's about it for my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. And then Pixavis says, aka Taser is one of Migo's favorite comps.
Oh yeah, it's a coined term. It's not something that a casual player would instantly understand. So the way that I explain Taser is just think of an actual Taser, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how in movies what they do is like when somebody's stepping on a puddle of water and then you electrocute the water, what happens to the person stepping on the water?
They get electrocuted.
They get electrocuted. So like that's the easiest way to explain Taser. You have a hydro unit and you have an electric. That's it. That's the basic core concept of it. It's also we call it Taser because it's a lot shorter than saying electro charge. Such a fancy term.
So is it kind of like like for example, if you're on like Kokomi, someone like Fischl, let's say Raiden, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah. There's just, since there are multiple hydro units, multiple electro units, there are multiple variants of it. But typically speaking, when we use the term Taser specifically, it generally involves a Fischl, because, at least from a theory crafting standpoint, because Fischl has this one ability where she literally shoots you with a lightning bolt that comes from the sky every time somebody gets electrocharged. So you've always wanted to try Taser team comps. I think that Taser team comps are extremely fun, extremely flexible. As I mentioned, there are multiple variations of it. So you can kind of just mix and match your favorite characters, and as long as you're following the core concept, you should be perfectly fine.
So let's say hypothetically, as someone who mainly does a lot of casual videos and more of talk videos, I'm trying to start, I'm going to try starting doing build guides and trying to
that's very interesting.
try to do like a perspective for each. For example, if they want to build that specific character as a main DPS, support DPS, or like or sub DPS, or just support in general. So how exactly would you go about testing that, since there's so many YouTubers, so many streamers? What would someone like me do to differentiate myself, to show that okay, my build is the most efficient possible, or if from a meta standpoint?
Oh, from a meta standpoint, I don't think there's much difference from any other YouTuber, because as we mentioned, right, the math of the game is, to me, very straightforward, and it's you can basically say that you're only either doing the most amount of damage or you're trading something for it. So you're doing 70% damage, 30% utility, or you're doing 100% damage, pretty much zero utility. So, from a meta standpoint, because, okay, when we talk about meta and Genshin Impact, what generally strikes people's head is the most amount of damage, so on and so on. So sometimes they just include the max damage build, so on and so on. And I think if you wish to separate yourself from other content creators, it's gonna be helpful to talk about nuances instead. Like, when I say nuances, what I mean with that is, how do you get... So, okay, we know the best build, but what are potential issues, or like, how do we use this build in particular? So, like, the thing that I've seen with most casual players is that, first and foremost, you can give them a theory, well thought out, mathed out team, but they don't know how to execute the team, how to play it properly, so to speak. What are the potential problems they may run into when playing that team? Because I have seen situations where I recommended a team to someone, say a more powerful, say Team A and Team B, where Team A is just mathematically more powerful than Team B. But then they told me that they enjoyed playing Team B more because it has less nuances, less problems. It's a lot easier for them to run, and when they themselves tested it, they got a better clear speed, they felt safer, so on and so on, by playing Team B. So I think the nuances are much more important. So, because, like, it doesn't matter that you're dealing a lot of damage in theory when you cannot apply it in practice. So that's one way to do it if you're intending to do guides. What are the good sides of this team? What are the bad sides of this thing?
So, like, really going in on the nuances and trying to figure out essentially, like, okay, the pros and cons of a specific character and why this character, for example, works so well with this one and why this character doesn't work too well with that character.
Right.
Kind of like that. Okay.
I think if I may give a concrete example, one of the examples that I consistently give is one of the banner characters right now, Raiden Shogun. So from a casual player's standpoint, she seems like we're talking about C0 characters, by the way. We have to hold some assumptions otherwise. Because, like, the thing with the game is that with enough whaling, you will be able to clear content regardless of which character it is. So assuming a free-to-play player with a C0 Raiden Shogun, a lot of players may have the tendency to think that she's an extremely strong character, does a lot of damage, so on and so on. But mathematically speaking, she is, in a lot of her teams, she is basically a side grade to 4-star units in terms of damage output. But how is it that people think that she's a really strong character? And I think the nuance to that is that she's an extremely easy character to play. So, one of her more popular teams, if I mention the term Raiden National, does that click in your head right away?
Yeah,
or
yeah, it does. Yeah. So
isn't
it
Raiden
like,
National,
So isn't it like Raiden, the Xiangling, is it that build? The
it's that one, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Xiangling, Qingqiu, and then Bennett. Because, like, how simpler can it get when all you have to do is just press all your ults before Raiden Shogun, right? And then press Raiden Shogun's ult, and then start left. It's extremely simple. There's no setup needed. There's no complicated matters to it, right? So that's one of the nuances to it, is that people can have the perception that this team is stronger because it's so easy to play, as opposed to a team that potentially does a similar amount of damage, which is Child International, which is basically the same thing. It's Child, Tartaglia, whatever you call them, Xiangling, Kazuo, and Bennett. They basically deal about the same damage. It's just that International is a tiny bit more difficult to play because you need to play it in a proper manner, so to speak, to maximize the damage output. Right? That's the first thing. Oh, I like the point that because everyone has a different account. There are many cases where things that you might not really recommend, so on and so on. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I also enjoy theory crafting in general, because to me, anytime I see a new account, it's a new puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
Because not everyone has the same thing. From a theory crafting standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, right, we have to assume certain things from a generalized standpoint. So again, one of the assumptions I tend to hold is free-to-play or Battle Pass welcome, you only have C0 5-star units. So the moment that you have a C1, C2, or a 5-star weapon with refinements, obviously my math will not hold. So that's generally where we draw the line. So when I see someone with a, hey, you have a C2 Redon with an engulfing lightning, her signature weapon, then my perspective of how I approach your account in terms of my recommendation changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I enjoy about it. That's why I said that I don't really have a dead time in Genshin Impact, because I have a redeem where I review someone's account and then just tell them, hey, this is probably your best move, in terms of increasing your damage, so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, my favorite character in the game is Eula. So, for example...
that's an interesting character.
So, just understanding, like, for example, if someone asks me how to build Eula, I'm able to give them, like, a pretty good answer. Because I've obviously been able to explain, like, I've been able to, like, figure out the nuances about her, figure out, like, what kind of what team comps would work for her, since I'm like very interested in her character, and it's mainly focused on her character, since she's one of those characters where you have to like really put your resources in terms of like, okay, how can I have my ult for like up constantly, for example, because it just requires like a lot of energy. So my question is let's say you're trying to build someone like Ayato later on, but he's a new character. So how exactly would you approach this new puzzle, so to speak?
Oh, about that one. Usually when a new character comes out, I make a command specifically for that character. And then the people that know about the command just spams it whenever somebody asks about the character. Excuse me. Okay, so if Ayato does come out, like the moment he comes out, I am expecting questions. How is he? What's his best set? And then the command that I make usually just says the same thing for every new character. This character is new. I'm still testing. I'm still doing the math. I have no idea. That's generally how it goes. Because as we mentioned, you talked about the nuances, right? Like you've had a lot of playtime with Eula. You've had a lot of time to test your character. Similarly, if a character just comes out, then I don't have a lot of time to test the character. I don't know their nuances. Maybe I'll find something that works, but that doesn't necessarily translate to that being the best way to play the character. So yeah, that's the first thing. That personally, I don't know, and I do not want to make claims. I can make a first impression, but what I will be saying first and foremost is not law and should not be taken as law. It's just a first impression, obviously, right? It could always change, especially if I was wrong about something, and I don't mind taking back what I said if I know that I'm wrong. Because the focus of my channel, again, is doing things mathematically. But what if I did my maths incorrectly, right? What if I assumed incorrect things? What if my nuances were not particularly, the best nuances that I saw in my personal circumstance of my personal playtesting? So I think that, like whenever a new character comes out, I always tell them, please give me time, give me some weeks, or sooner or later. I sometimes make changes to my claims to character months in, because I discovered something new. So even that can happen. I don't know what to expect with Ayato yet. I see that he's basically just this character that pulls out sword, slashes very quickly, so on and so on. And we'll see how that goes.
Man, I had a question, and then it just like flopped out, because I'm like I'm really thinking here, because I kind of picture theory crafting as, so in university I am a computer science major. So,
I see.
And obviously, what does that entail? Doing a lot of math. This is why I don't want to do too much of Genshin math, because I already do a lot myself. It's not that I don't enjoy it. It's more of like, a generalized thing. So like, let's say in my case, like for example, you're theory crafting, trying to figure out the nuances. So what I try to do in, for example, my programs is kind of the same thing, where it's like, okay, we were able to do it this way, but what's another way that could possibly be more efficient or take less time? So it's, I think it's pretty similar to that aspect, where I guess theory crafting and, for example, someone who's like coding for a long time, I think it just takes a lot of practice, and in terms of a lot of time to really like figure out, okay, so how does this work? How does this tick? And like,
definitely. I think when Eula first came out, nobody thought of using Lisa. As I was pointing out, the Lisa Eula couple, strong, low investment, underrated combo, by the way. In theory, Eula Lisa is actually, like, Lisa is in theory Eula's best electro support in the game, bar none. And the gap between the next best is actually very, very wide, right? But nobody will think of that because it's Lisa. So it does take a lot of time and potentially thinking and this and that to figure out these things. There are some people that are more experienced, I would say, they would just see certain patterns. So for example, in my case, right, I see Ayato and then I see that he is a Hydra unit. The first thing that comes to my head right away is, does he work with Blizzard Strayer? And most people will be like, why would you put a cryo set on a Hydra unit? And in my head, yeah, but if you can freeze, he crits. And if he crits, I can build crit damage. So he does a lot of damage. So these patterns will start showing up the longer you stay in the theory crafting side of things. I actually demonstrated it recently in one of my previous streams this past week. I have been playing with Blizzard Strayer Tartaglia. And a lot of people were like, wait, you put Blizzard Strayer on Tartaglia? And I said, yeah, look, I'm playing it on Abyss and it works. And it's doing a lot of damage. So things like that can suddenly show up the more experience you have with a certain something. And I think one of the more important jobs of a theory crafter is to try and communicate these findings in a much more condensed way without overloading somebody with information. It's really difficult. Yeah, that's about it for the experience and the lengthy things that we do.
So for example, every time you kind of review a certain person's account, it's different every time because they have access to certain things to So let's say since my favorite character is Eula, do you mind if we kind of do a mock, I guess, and then see?
Yeah, definitely, sure.
Okay. Sure. So in terms of Eula, who would you build around her, and do you mind explaining the nuances and I guess the pros and cons, let's say, a hypothetical best team meta wise?
In a Eula team, I generally have 4 variants of a Eula team in my head, and it depends on which characters are available to you. Her most expensive team comp, in my eyes, is probably a team that consists of Eula and 34 stars, and not Raiden Shogun, basically. It's expensive in a sense wherein the resin investment that you need to put in the team is actually a lot more than a typical Eula team comp. And it contains Eula, Beidou, Fischl, and then Diona. And the reason why this team comp in particular is extremely expensive is because, typically speaking, when people think of a character, right, you build your main DPS and then you have supports that make your main DPS stronger. But in that particular team comp, you have a main DPS and 2 off-field units. I don't call them sub-DPS, I just call them off-field units. The reason for this is because when I think of main and then sub seems to me like a secondary layer. When in that particular team comp, Eula is actually the secondary layer damage, and Beidou and Fischl are the primary damage dealers, but they're off-field.
Yeah.
So that's particularly why I think it's expensive, and I think it's one of the more powerful variants, because you have 2 extremely powerful Electro units that are dealing damage while your Eula is dealing damage at the same time. So that's one of the team comps that I can suggest. But also at the same time, right, when you build that Eula team comp, the nuances that come to it is, 1, Eula's combo changes. You know how Eula stacks her ult and all that stuff. There's a best combo to it, so to speak. If you play her with a Beidou and Fischl, because those are on-hit characters, you change your combo differently entirely. It's really, really weird. And then the typical Eula team comp, I think the easiest one to recommend is Eula Fischl, Rosaria Diona, which is, as you mentioned, right, that team in particular addresses Eula's energy issues. Now, if we start comparing that team versus the Eula Fischl Beidou team, the nuance that I can see there right away is that, 1, you only have 2 cryo units in the first team, the one with the Fischl and Beidou, meaning that Eula requires a lot more energy recharge than usual. So she requires a bit more attention to detail when building her. You cannot just if you can make your Eula work in the second variant with 3 cryo units, it does not necessarily translate that you can just replace the Rosaria with a Beidou and expect it to work right away. You'll probably not expect it to work because the Eula can have lower energy recharge. The other thing that you have to worry about is again, the off-field DPS units, they themselves require a proper build to work. So, they have their own sets of nuances, so on and so on. And then, I have the other team comps, which is the Eula Raiden. I think that's one of the more popular ones because Waifu Overload, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those team comps that it's like the very hard to swallow pill there is that does not necessarily do more damage than just running a Fischl in the same team. It's one of those teams where I said that Raiden is in particular a side grade to Fischl. And in my opinion, that's perfectly fine in the sense wherein, hey, you get to play your favorite characters, right? And it's not an upgrade, but it's definitely not a downgrade either. And if you're clearing, and you're enjoying because you're playing your favorite waifus. But again, the harder to swallow pill there is that when people come to my chat asking me, hey, this is better than that because of certain reasons, blah, 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 and then I show them my sheets and I said, no, it's not. It's a lot harder for them to accept. So I think that's also a part of the Theorycrafting community is to communicate what is a bit more acceptable in a more acceptable manner, because it doesn't matter that you have the correct mats. If people don't accept what you're saying, then they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah,
so that's one of the nuances with the
Oh no, I was gonna say like it's kind of like in real life, kind of like tying it into real life. Like for example, if you show someone the math on something, right? Like you're showing someone the math of facts or showing someone like this, they could always be in denial because from the day they were born, I'm pretty sure this is pretty much what I'm trying that I'm understanding from you is where pretty much by the day you're born, you're pretty much being influenced a certain way and a certain way of thinking, a certain way of acting. So I find it very similar to what you're saying is that if they have like a specific set mindset where they're like, okay, I can't do anything differently. This is the only way I'm taught. You're wrong and I'm right. Even though technically it like what you said, there's like nuances to it, and there's always, no matter what, pros and cons to whatever you're doing, and then even the smallest little detail can change everything entirely. So I guess especially when you're showing, for example, when you're showing someone the math behind it and they just don't believe it, it's more because of because I took a media class in uni as well, and it was pretty interesting just understanding it as well. Is people just have just different perspectives on things and just how they look at certain ideas. So let's say, for example, the Eula team, right? They run Eula Raiden, but they wouldn't necessarily think that, they'll automatically think that that's the one defined meta because this person said so and everyone else is using it, not because they've tested it, if that makes sense. It's more of, let's join, they call it mainly the bandwagon effect, where you're just hopping in and you're like, okay, this is just the main thing that you're supposed to be using. That's why, for example, when you were explaining how you use Child with Blizzard Strayer, the people were like, what the heck? It's because they're like, that's just not the norm. And then people will tend to criticize that because it's just not the norm. And they're like, it's different. So it's weird. So it's wrong. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like,
I got that.
Like people would always think that, okay, there's always one set of way of doing something when there's a multitude of ways. That's why, for example, something like computer science, right? Something that's very, very difficult. One of the most dropped majors. Why it's so difficult? It's because there's not one answer. Like everybody codes differently. It's like everybody has like a different different print. Let's say like how someone codes.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like how someone codes, you could figure out, it's this person who's coding, especially if you're doing it for a long time, because they have a set way of doing something where patterns will keep arising constantly. And that's kind of like, I guess I'm going too much off tangent, but pretty much what I'm trying to say is like people have different sorts of perspectives when it comes to builds. When they say, my favorite YouTuber said this is it, then this is how it is. There's no other way to make them better. But in fact, most of the time there's always something new, something that you could like figure out, something that you can min-max, something that you could the nuance of it that you could just figure out, which I feel like it's, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I would enjoy Theorycrafting a lot more than, because I don't know how you personally feel about the Genshin community, but it's I don't know. What are your thoughts, I guess, about the Genshin community as a whole?
So let's just to it done back to it for the the theory crafting side of things and people not accepting things.
Mhm.
I actually tangent to that topic a lot. That's why I said that my chat earlier, maybe my chat sometimes calls me a just chatting streamer with Genshin in the background, is because when I do maths, I tangent it to real life applications, and one of those is, again, just because you have the numbers or the data or the proof to something does not necessarily translate to people accepting what you're saying.
Mhm.
Science communication is incredibly important, by the way. So yeah, okay, so that's kind of the thing that I wanted to say. The next thing is you mentioned something about, hey, my favorite YouTuber says this, therefore I think he's right, you're wrong.
Mhm.
The thing is that the other thing that I've noticed is that some people, this is tangenting also to the Genshin community, some people have a thing where they have a tendency to overbelieve what their favorite content creator of choice says, and
Mhm.
sometimes takes it out of context. So I'm not saying that the community behind the content creator is always wrong, or like there are just some people that do that sometimes, is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So there's that. That's why I said that the communication aspect of it is incredibly important. It's very important for a theory crafter, say someone like me, or even a content creator that's not necessarily a numbers person, to say things in a better way, so
Mhm.
that people can digest the information in a better way. That's why I said, like, if you were to try to set yourself apart, one of the things to talk about are the nuances, because I find it astounding at how many people consume these guide contents and still do not know how to play this team, or how to play this character, how to build this character, even though they're constantly consuming guides. How do you build this character, so on and so on. I've watched like 10 videos on YouTube and I still don't get it,
Mhm.
because they don't talk about certain nuances.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's that. So moving on to the Genshin community in general,
Mhm.
I don't want to fully generalize. So for those of you that are
Mhm.
listening in the chat, this is not meant to be an attack, but um, the way that I see it is that I'd like to believe it. I don't have the proper statistics for it, but I'd like to
Mhm.
believe that 95 or even more, maybe slightly less or so, of the community are casual players that don't necessarily do the numbers in the game.
Mhm.
Those 95% of the people, you can subdivide them to people that are just strolling around the game, enjoying the view, enjoying their characters, wishing that they had more prima gems because free to play life is free to play,
Mhm.
right? And then the rest of them may be just people that do consume the guide content and are trying to get the best out of their characters, but they don't do the numbers. And then the remaining 5, or maybe even less than that, are the people that are trying to actually consider the game from a numbers perspective.
Mhm.
And so what I think there is that because people are coming from different subdivisions in the community, they all have their different takes, they all have their different perspectives on how to see things. And because of those clash of ideals, I think that that's where the negativity or positivity of the discussions come from or stem from,
Mhm.
right? So, like, as in my case, as I mentioned earlier, in my chat we have a mix of people that are just completely casual. There are people that are, the ones that consume guides but don't necessarily do the numbers, and then those people that actually do the numbers. So what I
Mhm.
try to do is, like, I try to settle on a middle ground. Hey, these are some numbers you can work with. You just need your phone's calculator for it to min-max your character. And that's what I try to do, basically. Try and
Mhm.
bridge the gap.
Mhm.
So that's my comment on the Genshin community. Is I think it's very interesting.
Mhm.
Very, very interesting.
I feel like in terms of just the Genshin community, like you said, it's really difficult to really say the Genshin community. That's also what I wanted to segue in, because it's also kind of different, because there are different sides and different facets of the Genshin community itself, that it's not just one community, it's,
No,
it's like
definitely not.
it's just there's like people who are, for example, mainly the waifu community or something, like maybe generalizing it. But then there's also the meta community as well. And then there's also like the more casual community where they're just like running around. Like, I feel like it just depends. It's like, for example, if someone sees someone playing a game, right? And they're like, you aren't playing the game right. But there's multitude of ways to play like any specific game. Like, for example, if you wanted to make, for example, let's say Pokemon, right? Since we mentioned Pokemon earlier, you could in theory say that Pokemon, oh yes, Pokemon is extremely easy, but you could also restrict yourself. Hence, like, for example, Nuzlocke or
Nuzlocke,
let's say, Nuzlocke, or only using a specific Pokemon, for example, right? Like you could, with those restrictions, that would then mean that you make the game harder, right? So it also, like,
you have to play it differently than standard.
And then, like, I feel like that's what really gets the community kind of divided on certain things, because people have different sorts of perspectives and how they go about things. For example, I think that was pretty much it. What I wanted to say.
Okay, so for on that end, I think I think there's also this if you're a main of a certain character, I don't want to call someone out or anyone out. It's more of like there can be a tendency for a person who mains a certain character to either have a very inflated view of their character or a very what's the opposite of inflated? I forgot. Deflated view of the character, right? So, you know, when I try to do numbers, I basically put it on a certain standard. And as I mentioned, if that standard does not hold true, simply speaking, then my claims don't hold true. Some people just, like, when they see their character clear content, they suddenly start dismissing the things that a theorycrafter would say. They're like, oh no, he's not weak, no, something like that. And I think what you need, what those people need to start considering first and foremost is that when a theorycrafter says a character is weak, it's not to try and say that the character is unusable. Character will still probably clear, and with enough love and investment, his character will be strong. But when we say that it's weak, it's probably because of a different kind of saying when a character's. When we try to rate a character, there's always two ways to it. And I think this is the most misunderstood part. There's the pure power perspective, and there's the relative power perspective. Pure power means that this is the actual output of a character, and if this character can clear, this character will clear. It doesn't matter if somebody says weak, this will clear. A relative power means that, have you heard of this economic term called opportunity cost?
Yeah, I have.
Right, so for those that don't know, opportunity cost is basically, like, if I get this, what am I trading versus if I get the other one? So when we say a character is weak, it's generally because of a relative power or opportunity cost. So I think the more controversial one here, again, is Raiden Shogun versus Fischl, right? When we say that Raiden Shogun isn't exactly strong, she's strong, by the way, but not overinflated strong, is because that there are certain characters that can fulfill her role with a similar cost or sometimes less. So in a Eula team comp, I think this is my favorite one, the Eula Raiden team comp, if you have a C0 Raiden Shogun, is that she is a 5-star unit, but a 4-star could fulfill her role in that particular team, and that unit is Fischl. So because of the cost that we're trying to input here, where in Fischl is a 4-star, Raiden is a 5-star, therefore Raiden is technically more expensive to a certain degree, right? So because of that, when we say that, oh, she's not particularly strong, I think people can take that to a negative side of things. We're not saying that she's unusable and you should always just use Fischl. We're just saying that, for the same cost of money, maybe you can save yourself some time and effort. But if you really want to play them, yeah, sure, go for it. By all means, I'm not going to stop you if it's more fun for you, right? Because to me, fun is the best aspect of this game. Like, it's literally why everyone opens this game. Why would you do something that you don't find fun?
Exactly.
So yeah, there's that divide to the community. Is literally just the what do you call it? The when somebody says a character is weak argument. That's it.
Oh wait, did my stream? Okay, hold on. My stream's on red. Is it still open? Can you hear me?
Yeah, stream's good.
Oh, okay. I don't know why on my OBS it says it's like red.
It's still working. I got it like when I was seeing it, it was loading.
Oh, okay. Because it's on red right now. I don't know. Okay, whatever. But you can still hear me, right? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can definitely still.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was like, because it's fluctuating at 0, so I'm like, oh no, we're in such a deep conversation. I hope someone's not messing with the internet. Let's see.
Yeah.
But let's say hypothetically, right? So for my Eula, right? So I have C0. Like, let's say I'm trying to build a meta-defying, just like for a Eula comp in general. So I have Eula with Song of Broken Pines. So then, let's say I'm running with Fischl, Beidou, and then Diona. So Diona will be like, at least in my opinion, trying to give Eula the most amount of, ER, give her the most amount of particles, etc. So, for example, if I wanted to build a Fischl or a Beidou, how would I go about doing that for this specific team?
The Fischl is actually the easier one to build because you're spending your time in the Pale Flame domain. You're eventually going to get Tenacity of the Millelith pieces. And this is something that most people actually don't know, is that you can build it on Fischl. Because, like, what ends up with Tenacity of the Millelith, Fischl's most popular set is 2 Thundering Fury, 2 Gladiator, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
You're only losing the Thundering Fury passive, but still gain the exact same attack percent passive from the Tenacity of the Millelith, and she can snapshot that buff. And what most people don't understand is, like, sure, your Fischl is losing some damage, but she's giving everyone else damage. Like, losing damage on that one character while benefiting 2 different characters, or, at the same time, is to me a net positive. So that's one way to do it. You don't have to do it, by the way. It's just one way to do it. Then for the Beidou, she's actually very straightforward. Just go to the Emblem of Severed Fate domain. That's the one that's the most recommended, given that it is extremely resin efficient. And eventually, if you still don't get the Tenacity of the Millelith pieces on your Fischl, you can still give her the 2-piece Shinanawa coming from the same domain. That's why I said that it's not necessarily resin efficient to do that particular team comp, because you have to go to 2 separate domains just to build it, when you can potentially just set on one and then strongbox Noblesse pieces or something along those lines. Because generally, that's how I would build a Eula if I were starting from scratch, is that I would go to the Pale Flame domain, take 2-piece Pale Flame, and then strongbox 2-piece, what's that domain called? Bloodstained Chivalry. Something along those lines, to make it resin efficient. But yeah, if you were to build your Fischl in Beidou, Fischl's potential best one is the Tenacity of the Millelith, and Beidou's best one is the Emblem of Severed Fate.
So let's say you're trying to build, man, I can't remember. It's just like Sans, Goblet, and Circlet, right? That's the order?
Yeah, let's just call them Sans, Goblet, Circlet. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say for Fischl and Beidou, would you go both of them for attack percent, or would you go energy recharge for that specific?
This one is the harder question to answer. For Fischl, strictly speaking, okay, so I'll just define some terms that may be confusing to some of your viewers. This term is not necessarily popular in the theory crafting community, but I call it the ADC build, and that stands for the main stats of your Sans, Goblet, Circlet. A stands for attack, D stands for damage, so it doesn't matter if it's electric goblet damage, something damage, basically a damage goblet. And then the C stands for crit, whichever lets you go to the 1:2 ratio. For Fischl, she does the standard ADC build. For Beidou, a lot of people seem to think that you have to give her an energy recharge Sans and then damage crit circlet. And I don't necessarily agree to it, but also don't necessarily disagree, because this is where substats come in. And the thing with Beidou in that particular team comp is that she requires a bit more energy recharge than usual, as opposed to typical other Beidou teams. Typically, Beidou can sit on around 140, 160 on other teams, but in a Eula team comp specifically, she wants at least 180 energy recharge, if not more. It depends on how many perfect parries you can land. Here comes the nuances of that team comp. That's why I said that it's her strongest team comp, but the nuances will start piling up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in that particular team comp, you don't want to run an energy recharge Sans as much as you can. But also at the same time, you want a lot of energy recharge from the substats. That's why I said Emblem of Severed Fate is the best way to go, because that set bonus alone will give you free 20% energy recharge, which removes some of the stress. And you don't want to run an energy recharge Sans, because that boosts you straight to 170, which leaves you 10 energy recharge from the substats. But what more from your other pieces, it's going to overcap your energy recharge, and you're basically wasting stats from a min-max perspective. So that's why, you still want to run the standard ADC, but you may want like more other things. Also, it depends on the weapon that's available to you. If you have, say, the Skyward Pride, which is an energy recharge weapon, it removes some of the stress on the energy recharge side of things. If you have an attack percent weapon like the Aquamaru, the Wolf's Gravestone, so on and so on, then maybe that may allow you to run energy recharge sands. Like these are the nuances that come with it. So the goal is, in short summary, try to run the standard ADC while still trying to get the 180 energy recharge. It's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, Genshin really is pretty interesting. It's like, because I used to be a really big first-person shooter type of guy where I'm like analyzing, okay, so what would be the most efficient strategy? But then, like you kind of said, the nuances of it. Like, for example, let's say you're going through film, right? Let's say this sounds silly because, it's a game, but it's like how you kind of watch in like basketball, football, you kind of look over film to see, okay, what could I have done differently, and what is this person's habits, for example? That's like a whole different tangent, I guess. But
definitely.
yeah. But let's say, for example, I'm playing like a first-person shooter game, right? And it's, just your basic first-person shooter, and then you try to figure out, okay, what would do, for example, the most amount of damage? But then it also depends, because like what you kind of said, the nuances, now you'd have to factor something like attack speed, right? Like, for example, if you could hit this many shots on someone, right? And then that might be able to offset that other weapon's massive damage comparison to that one. If that makes sense.
Like, I'm not an FPS player, but I think I was watching this documentary and they made a really good example for this. Technically speaking, for a lot of the FPS games, the AWP is supposed to be the strongest gun in the game. But why isn't everyone running it? It's because of the nuances that come with the gun. So as you mentioned, right, like it doesn't have a crosshair unless you're scoping, and if you're scoping, now you lose vision on certain areas. Like basically, the amount of nuances that come with the AWP just start piling up. So it's really reserved for the people that are fine doing those nuances, as opposed to the people that would just rather carry some other gun. So there's that. I think that's also similar to just games in general, or just life in general.
This sounds. Do you know what the term quickscoping is, or no?
I think I'm familiar with it, but can you elaborate?
Okay, so like, for example, if you have like a sniper or something, you like scope in and then like immediately hit your shot, I guess. And then that's essentially what quick scoping is. So like, let's say I have like a really close sniper, right? And then you know how snipers are generally, you have to go really far away, right? So I am mainly used to, for example, quick scoping, which is a lot harder to do, but also very, very rewarding at the same time in terms of nuances. Like this is supposed to also kind of tie into Genshin, but let's say I'm quick scoping someone, right? And then let's say I hit my shot. Like, for example, if I'm playing something like Call of Duty, where if you hit a quick scope on somebody, that means that if you hit that quick scope shot on somebody, they're instantly dead. So that is very rewarding, versus if you're playing a different game, you do quick scope them, you hit a headshot, it does a lot of damage, but then they can flee and run away. So like there's like kind of nuances to it, like there's like for example, if you go step 1, step 2, it's kind of similar, kind of like what you're saying with like Genshin builds. Like, for example, Eula's main combo, like what you were explaining, is different. Because you'd have to, from what you were saying earlier, you'd have to use her combo differently, since she's not the one who's mainly doing the damage. It'd be Fischl and then it'd be Beidou, because they'd be doing off-field stuff, for example, with Beidou's Q, and then you have Fischl's E out constantly. While Eula is doing damage, she's not the primary source of damage.
It's between the three of them, basically.
And then... Yeah, I guess I could go on and on about this, but like kind of like what you're saying, it's kind of like the nuances of it that kind of make it very, very interesting, where there's really no one right answer. And that's what there's really like no one right answer, but a lot of people are just used to that, where they cling to that one right answer. It's like, for example, if you're telling someone to learn a language, there's really no one right answer, and that's like a whole that's like a whole mess of itself. But like, for example, learning a language there's like a multitude of ways of doing it, but you could still achieve a very similar, or like an accelerated result if, like, for example, this is more akin to like more in real life stuff. So like studying, right? Like if let's say someone's like, oh, this is my studying thing, but it just doesn't work for them. Like some things just don't work for certain people, because we're all kind of unique in that sense, where And in computer science, they call it kind of like an instance of an object for something. I feel like that's also with humans in general. I guess we have a certain skill set that we're kind of born with that we can either take advantage of or we slack on. Like, for example, if someone is obviously much taller than another person and they're playing something like basketball, then they would have a much like a better advantage in terms of like, you know, getting the shot off on a certain person. But that much shorter, like a little shorter player might try to tackle it differently by using their speed against the other person because they're a lot slower. So it's kind of like it's just very interesting. This is the stuff that kind of that just makes me interested as well in terms of understanding the nuances. And, you know, everybody has their own skill set. Everyone has their own thing that they do, but then, you know, you could still achieve the desired result, kind of like clearing floor 12, right? There's obviously not one way of doing it.
Oh, definitely not.
You know, you can mix up your comps and stuff and have fun, but mixing it up is what makes it interesting, at least in my eyes.
But that's kind of like, I mean, it just kind of goes back to, you know, people like playing differently, people have different counts. You know, you're basically having to solve a different puzzle every time that you start mentioning the nuances, and that's also why I like doing the theory crafting things, and that's also why I like learning new things, is because sometimes, like, I am incorrect about again, as I mentioned, like, sometimes the nuances that I assume for this particular build team / whatever is incorrect, and me learning the new things leads me to be able to tell more people that, hey, there are other ways to do this, and, you know, like, I'm just exploring ideas, right? So yeah, like that's why also I generally, when somebody goes to me, for example, Eula, the easy, like, I just give them the easiest one, and then if I start like building up from there, like, this is the easiest Eula team you can run. But, excuse me, do you want to try something else? Do you want to, you know, step up your damage, or do you need or you already have enough? Something along those lines is what I like with it. Me personally, I just run the typical Eula team and I keep her level 70.
Yeah, it's kind of like, for example, it's kind of different, like how for some people bringing a character to level 90 would just be a waste of resources. Well, for example, like another character could actually really benefit from going to level 90. It just depends. It's just that's what I find interesting. Yeah, that's a mathematical point at this point.
So basically, from a fun fact perspective, remember the term ADC that I just mentioned?
Yeah.
There's a huge, generally speaking, an ADC unit doesn't actually need the extra levels because you don't gain much from just the idea of leveling up. You level them up not because you want the levels, but because you want the talents that come with it, or the ascension thing that they get. So in Eula's case, right, I said that I keep her at level 70, but I don't mean 70 out of 70. I mean 70 out of 80, which allows me to access her talent levels 7 and 8, depending on how much I give her, the books and whatnot. Right? So in her case, because Eula doesn't gain anything from 70 out of 80 into 80 out of 80, I don't do that. That is, to me, the waste of resources. But for some people, you know, if you really just want to see your character at their max, yeah, by all means, please do it. I'm not going to stop you from doing something that you enjoy.
Oh, okay. So I guess more towards, instead of just talking about Genshin, I kind of wanted to move this segment to talk more about, I guess, you and see, because I wanted the chat to really understand pretty much how your way of thinking is. I guess this first segment was more over to figure out, okay, what does Migo do that is completely different from other streamers, you know? So that's what I kind of wanted to... Yeah.
I've said it multiple times over the course of this podcast, is that I'm not actually a Genshin streamer. I'm a just chatting streamer with Genshin in the background. And I think you have had the taste of it just now, wherein now we started tangenting off to things like computer science, where the Genshin math is, well, it's not even just Genshin math, it's just typical life stuff. And typically speaking, what I do with my own life is, I guess branching off to how I see things from a personal perspective, is that I see things in a very mathematical way. And when I say mathematical way, I don't mean just numbers. Because honestly, this is one of the rants that I keep saying on my stream together with my other friend, is that we think that math is being taught in a very incorrect way. Because we are taught in typical school, the year 1 all the way to until you go to college, university, right? We are taught that math is basically just a number simulator wherein all you have to do is just pull out a calculator and you're fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what math is. Arithmetic is literally just 10% of what math is, and the rest of 90% is not being taught properly. So when I say that I view math from a mathematical perspective, I don't just mean the arithmetic, I mean the rest of the 90% that comes with. So, optimization and all that stuff, you sometimes don't need numbers for it, honestly. You can kind of just like for example, typical optimization question, should I go for an iPhone or an Android phone? Right? Like that kind of stuff, it's going to start a massive debate. I'm not here to start that debate. I am simply saying those are one of the things where you can view them from a mathematical standpoint, right? You can start listing down the pros and cons of each phone, and then from there make a decision. Instead of just like coin flipping and then just letting the coin decide for you. Then there's the other thing of just simply asking yourself, what should I do today? I have this assignment or a project that I need to work on. What do I do about it? You mentioned in computer science that everyone has different ways of coding. So you can treat it that way, and that is still a mathematical concept. Basically just choosing which path to take is a mathematical concept. So that's how I generally view life, is that I don't stop asking myself questions on how I should do things differently this time, or should I stick with my standard way of doing things. But yeah, honestly, that's why I keep calling myself a just chatting streamer, is because I just talk about the most random things in the universe and how I optimize it, or sometimes do the exact opposite of what my brain is telling me. So I think I'll just branch it back to Genshin. Genshin math is telling me not to play Lisa because she's literally not the most powerful unit in the game, doing the exact opposite of that. Just because for the fun of it, honestly, it brings the spice of life content. Like how you get to experience it very differently from how everyone else is doing it. So you have this efficient way of doing something, anything. Efficient way of chopping tomatoes with a fork. I don't know how you can do that, but let's just say that. But I don't want a way of chopping it with a fork. I'm gonna chop it with a spoon. So things like that, like just trying to be different, I guess, is how I do it. I just think of the most random things and then do it in a very different way. But in my head, it still works. So if it still works, then it still works, right? But I also sometimes branch out to certain philosophical concepts, like not like very deep stuff, but like again, this is to me a philosophical concept sounds along the lines of, I have something that works in a most efficient manner. This is still slightly math, but like still in an efficient manner that works. But like what other just enough but not the best works? That's not, because I call it the degree of appropriateness. Wherein, if for example, somebody asks you, hey, how much does that apple and that orange cost? And then they tell you $45, $47. In your head, are you going to actually add that up? Or are you just going to bring out 100 bill and then just ask for the change?
Yeah, you're just going to ask for the change.
Right? You're not going to bring out 90, I didn't math that, but like the 90 something money and then give the exact change to the cashier, right? You're just going to hand them 100 and then just call it a day. Right? So like, to me, the degree of appropriateness matters a lot when it comes to, deciding these things. Like sometimes good enough is good enough. You don't have to do it the best way possible. Just good enough is what you aim for sometimes. That's how I generally see life.
In terms of what is it called? Because you mentioned Pokemon before. How are you big on Pokemon, or are you more of like, that's what I used to be
big on? It's something that's I guess that would be where my theorycrafting life started, because I kind of did min-maxing in Pokemon to a certain degree. I play on the Smogon rule set. For those of you that are not familiar, there are two general rule sets that float around. The first one is the official Pokemon rule set. They call it the VGC, Video Game Championship rule set. And then there's the Smogon rule set. The difference is that VGC plays in 2 versus 2. You send out 2 Pokemon, your enemy sends out 2 Pokemon. But then that's not necessarily reflective of an in-game experience of a person that just wishes to play Pokemon from their device. And in your device, you basically just play 1v1s, which is where Smogon comes in. They have their own rule sets to it. So I tried min-maxing that to Oblivion, wherein, you know, at some point I did just stop it because one YouTuber that I watched said it himself, wherein like, when they play ROM hacks or basically fun versions of game like Nuzlocke and whatnot, they cannot unsee the min-max versions of things. Like, they cannot just do the most inefficient thing but still call it fun. It's so hard to move out of that. So like to me, what I did was that's kind of also where I lost passion in Pokemon. To me, I just really, really, really wanted to play it in the most fun way possible. So I kind of like stopped the Pokemon theory crafting and then just played for fun because it's fun.
This kind of like segues into pretty much how I actually wanted to. So I ended my stream, you know how I pretty much met you by rating you, and then I was like, hey, what's up? Because I wanted to figure out, okay, who here is like different and has a very interesting mindset. So I was scrolling through some streams. I'm like, okay, they're just talking, and then I stumbled upon your stream. And then I was listening to your thought process, explaining like, because I think it was you were doing account review streams, I think, and then you were reviewing someone's account. It's like, oh, interesting. This is, oh my gosh, man, I need some water. Yeah, I was gonna say, but yeah, it's when I was looking, I was like, okay, and then you were explaining the math behind it, and I was like, oh, this makes more sense because I'm the type of person who where I pretty much can listen to someone and then like I'm kind of like a sponge, pretty much like how you were pretty much explaining things. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like that's pretty much how I roll and how I understand things, because if someone tries to explain it in it's like, for example, if someone tries to explain something to me, I can get it a lot quicker than me just looking it up most of the time. Where like especially when it comes to a very complex topic, for example, and I'm like, oh, that's how you do it, instead of trying to really, you know, like for example, if you try to open a book and try to study something, right, it could take like hours, especially if it's a complex topic. But if someone explains it in, okay, this is what it is, this is like the basic of it, then you're like, oh, now that other complex stuff makes sense. But I'm going on a tangent again, this is bad. But essentially it's like when I saw your channel too, I was like, oh, this Migo seems really cool. So I also decided to rate you, and I guess to if you were ever thinking, oh, this person rated me or something, I don't know how many people, you know, raid you, or for example, but whenever I try to raid someone, for example, I'm like, okay, what makes this person different than what than the next person, you know, because a lot of people, this is what I personally I like how this is supposed to be a podcast about you.
Oh yeah, definitely, that's fine, take it down.
But in terms of like, for example, I mainly do YouTube, where I upload videos. I had this very difficult topic that I had to pretty much swallow, where I'm like, okay, how am I going to be able to do YouTube in my way? And that seems like a very difficult thing for me personally to answer, where most people would do very trendy videos, very trendy videos. This is how, I guess, how I'm thinking about it right now, and this could answer a bunch of my chat's questions too, because I haven't been I've been trying to get more consistent, etc. But it's like, for example, for me, how I'm approaching YouTube right now, I used to do a lot of like Genshin videos and stuff, but then also I was like, okay, you're making these really trendy, cool Genshin videos, but then you need to ask yourself, okay, then what happens next? That's the hard part that I had to really figure out, because that's how because I've been doing YouTube for a while, like years. So I've been thinking, I'm like, okay, what would make the people more like, what would make viewers really try to come back for you? That was the hardest thing that I was trying to figure out. And that's just a loaded question in itself, where I've been trying to contemplate and think about, because a lot of the really successful streamers that I've seen, YouTubers that I've watched, they've done everything differently. It works differently how they got to where they are now is completely different than how other people did. That's why sometimes it's very hard for people to be like, oh, I did the same thing as this person, how come I'm not getting viewers, etc. And that was something that I think early 2014, 2015, when I was doing it, 2013 or something, when I was really trying to figure out, I was like, okay, I'm doing the same thing, but why is it not getting clicks? Why is it not getting views, etc.? And then I had to think back. I'm like, okay, so what is your purpose of YouTube? And this comes with motive as well. It's like, how, for example, you already know motive, like, for example, like what
Right.
So in terms of motive, it's like, okay, so, and this is a very simple topic because I like to think very logically as well, like kind of like mathematically, kind of like you, like I'm trying to figure out, okay, what would be the best possible solution for my case. So when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, let's say I did Genshin, and Genshin's really fun. I still really enjoy it. And I was just pretty much thinking about, okay, so what's going to happen next? Because I'm not going to lie, a lot of people, and this isn't to bash any YouTubers, streamers, but if you just stick with one content, if you ask yourself, okay, what is the motive of my subscribers coming back? Like, what do you think that answer would be?
Top of my head, for either the content that you're making or the personality.
Yeah. So yeah, on the top, yeah, that's pretty much it. So they'll pretty much be thinking, okay, I'm really going to be coming in mainly. This is how I viewed it, at least. I saw pretty much both of your thoughts as well, but they're mainly going to be coming back for the Genshin content. That's why I was like thinking about doing build guides, etc. But it's something that, when people are like, oh yeah, if you don't enjoy something, don't do it. Sometimes, you have to think about, okay, what do I need to do to kind of like kickstart type of thing, which is very interesting in itself. But I'm going on off on a tangent.
No, that's alright.
I don't know if it's pretty much as similar as kind of like how you kind of go off tangents, like how you were explaining. But
we're basically okay. You're basically evolving into the same type. We're technically Genshin streamers, but we're also just chatting streamers with Genshin on the background.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot more people who, at least the viewers that I have now, that really like enjoy like watching, because right now what I'm trying to do is kind of an experiment of my own, where I'm trying to, do daily types of content, but like different types. But then over time, this is my thought process. In the short term, it'd be very hurtful, I guess, because you're not really getting out there as much. But then if you think about it, if you build this community more and more, this is just my thought process on it. If I work on it more and more and more, and then it's catered towards your type of content and fixate it on, for example, your personality, then that would be much better for the long term. That was just my thought process behind it. But it's kind of like, it's pretty much also like how I watch streamers and stuff. I'm like, okay, what makes this person different? I don't know. I very much like observing people and figuring out kind of like what their thought process is, because every single person in this world is different. I feel like a lot of people like to do comparisons and try to figure out, oh dude, who's the best of this? Who's the best of this? But in reality, we're all very, very different. And I actually wanted to mention this question to you. What do you think about the word perfect? What do you think about it?
Oh, I think that kind of goes on with a bit of my channel philosophy as well, is that this is something that I read about. I don't know how true it is, but like the reason why trendy is because of the fact that they stand out compared to the rest, right? But that's also particularly why I kind of like, and also with regards to the perfect scenario, it goes back to my Pokemon days, wherein I could no longer play the game the way that I enjoy it because I could not unsee a min-max, right? So like, the way that I see it now, at least nowadays on the Genshin Impact community, is that I give a standard of what's good enough. I don't, like, I tell them that, hey, this is the perfect one, but this is good enough, and I can show you that this is good enough. So it's like, to me, the word perfect is like, if everyone is perfect, then nobody's perfect. If everyone is the best, then nobody's the best. Right? So like, I kind of like had a weird desensitization of the word, wherein like I try to detach it from my content, wherein, again, as I mentioned, right, I will tell you the meta, I will tell you the mathematically best one, But for crying out loud, I will play Lisa.
Yeah.
So like that's how it occurs to me in my head.
I see. So, and this is also kind of a tangent. So in terms of other games, what games do you like playing, and what games do you plan to possibly play in the future for your stream after? Genshin?
Regarding stream, actually, that's a very weird thing because I only ever intend to stream Genshin Impact. I don't want to stream anything else in terms of streaming because, like, let's just say that this is like a weird standard to uphold, but like, I do the maths on all of this and that. Like, cause it's like, I heard this, like, I talked about this with a different theorycrafters, like, where they also suffer the same thing from my Pokemon days, where it's hard to unsee the min maps. So it's like, if I start streaming another game and I play it casually, I keep wondering now, what if my viewers started asking me, hey, why aren't you doing this in the most efficient way possible? Or like, sometimes I see this in other casual player streams wherein some people really just like to backseat and do like, hey, you're not doing it in the best way possible, I think that also stems to the perfection and whatnot. But like, the reason why I don't want to stream any other game is because I feel like I wouldn't be able to enjoy it my way. I would feel like I wouldn't be able to enjoy it from a casual player perspective. Heck, I play other games on my phone, on my laptop, on my iPad, so on and so on. And I literally do the most inefficient things that I know. Like, I read up the guides and then they tell me, do this, do that, do that. I'm like, no. Not this way. I'm going that way.
Yeah.
So, to me, motivation... My motivation to, is driven by my ability to make choices for myself rather than other people making choices for me. In that sense. It's like, the reason why I don't stream, as I mentioned, right, is because I don't want somebody to make the choices for me when I can perfectly do them myself and still make it work. That's why in the Genshin streams as well, I tell them, hey, this one's good enough, you're good to go. Like, you don't need anything more than this, but if you really want to, okay, here's the thing that you need to do. Stuff like that.
So I'm actually thinking of, because there's this franchise that I'm thinking about that I feel like that you would extremely enjoy, but let's see how you handle these questions first, because I'm trying to see I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this your franchise? It's kind of like how if someone asks you like, oh, what anime do I watch, that's like kind of a loaded question, because it kind of depends on the person. It's like what do you like, and then then you go on a tangent and then you try to figure it out, and then yeah. So are you into turn-based combat at all, or are you on the perspective now where you're like turn-based is boring?
Pokemon, that's a very huge turn-based combat, like to say.
Because
I do like it actually.
Because like a lot of people have this perspective. Oh, sorry, what were you saying? Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm about to say that I do like turn-based. I'm actually I actually have a really huge hate for reflex-based games or real-time games. And then again, just a slight background. The reason why I also do math in Genshin is because my stream knows I'm very bad at the game, and that I use math to make up for my lack of skill. And that's why I generally prefer the turn-based aspect of stuff, especially when there's no timer to it, because I can like freely make my decision whenever I want to do it. So, although the previous to this is that I don't play a lot of games, just to put it out. I am intending to play some old Final Fantasy games, the turn-based ones, at some point in the future, but there's that.
So my chat is now figuring out what I'm about to say, because one of them knows what I'm about to recommend too. So how much do you, because this topic might get you into something that you might want to also stream, because okay, so before I get into that, so do you like being competitive in a sense where you like to be kind of logical with your thinking, but it also like you also have time to think about the multiple scenarios?
In terms of competitive, like, do you mean PvP aspect?
Oh, no. I mean, like, if a game is hard, do you like give up a lot, or are you like, okay, I'm gonna figure out this puzzle? That depends. Not like PvP, like in a turn-based setting. Like, let's say you're playing, let's say the infamous, because I'm a big Pokemon guy too. So like, let's say how everyone complains about how Cynthia's very hard, or something like that. Yeah. So yeah. So like, for example, if you were to lose to Cynthia once, hypothetically, would you give up, or would you be like, okay, I'm gonna solve this and figure it out? Like, that's the better
okay, so at least from a Pokemon standpoint, if I didn't know what I knew now, I'd probably find ways to do it. But that probably comes with the fact that because I want to finish the game and Cynthia is literally the final wall. But like if they make a post-game content that's harder than Cynthia and it's not worth my time, I'm probably not gonna do it.
Yes, chat, it is.
Okay, so if I may just to try to explain my thought process a bit more, have you heard of the flow motivation theory?
No, I have not.
Right, so the TLDR, the flow motivation theory, is that if something is too hard and that the reward isn't too good, somebody who has a lower skill level will likely to give up. So if somebody is too easy, somebody will also, like the person with the exact same skill set to the previous scenario, will also give up because it's too easy. So like the flow motivation theory is stating that people will tend to do things within the range of their skill set, given enough rewards. So in my case, right, in the Cynthia question, right, because Cynthia is literally blocking my way to clearing the game, then yeah, I will actually find ways to do it. But the other example here is Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver. I don't know if you've played it. Red sits on top of Mount Silver and supposed to be the final boss of the game. But since he's post game, I tend to not do him at all because I don't wanna. It's a little too. It's gonna kill the fun for me, basically.
Yeah,
it's a little too difficult unless I do the things necessary to beat him. All right, not.
Okay, so I want to see. So
well, that's my thought process on things. If it's too hard, probably not.
I feel like this game would kind of be in your alley. Have you ever heard of you know what Persona is, right? But it's not Persona. But do you know what Persona is?
Yes, I've heard of.
Okay, so
yeah, I have heard of it. I haven't played it.
Okay, so there's another game. It's called SMT or Shin Megami Tensei. Have you ever heard of that before or no?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Oh wait. Sorry. What did you say it? Or sorry, my thing like cut out. Or
yeah, no, I have actually heard of it. Yeah.
Have you ever tried playing any of those games or no?
No, but if anything, I will at least say this. I know that Shin Megami Tensei has existed for quite a while, and that it has games in other platforms, like the older platforms. And I have intentions. One of the projects that I am working on is getting a 3DS because I've never owned one, and getting a PSP. I've owned one before, but I don't know where it is now. And then modding them to be able to play older games. So I intend to play PS2 games on the PSP, so on and so on and so on. So maybe, if I recall correctly, there is a PS2 game for that title. So maybe I'll play the older titles, not the newer ones.
Yeah,
I like to play the older titles for some reason.
No, I have the same thing. I've been delving into both. It's really funny because there's this old game for Shin Megami Tensei. Essentially, Persona, if you didn't know, is like a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei. And because Shin Megami Tensei actually came first, it's very, very old. It was made before pretty much I was born as well. That's how like it's pretty old, but
yeah.
So let's say, for example, in Shin Megami Tensei, there's this game that came out on the Switch that was a remaster of the other one, but what they did was they pretty much just upped the graphics, but they let everything kind of set in. Like it's the same experience, it's the same thing. And then they released it on like Steam, Switch, etc., stuff like that. But this game is very, very it's like, they call it the Dark Souls of JRPGs, which is really funny. That's just pretty much what they call it. It's called Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. And then I kind of have this thing where I like to really come in prepared before I do anything in general. Let's see. Well, yeah. So there's like a lot of
this is it the Shin Megami Nocturne?
Yeah.
Oh, it has a PS2 variant. Perfect.
Yeah, it does.
Time to put it on the PSP.
Yeah, so it's like this game. I feel like this would be one of your favorite games for this reason. And it's kind of like they kind of introduce you, they kind of like kick you in the face pretty much with one of the early bosses, where they're like, it's kind of like in life, you know, how in the idea of like procrastination, right? We have, I forgot what theory it's called, but we always like to fool ourselves that we have a lot of time, but we really don't.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of similar into this sense where the first boss, everyone's going to assume, oh, this is easy. I've been pretty much been breezing through the game. But then you hit this boss, where this boss essentially teaches you, like forces you to learn all the mechanics. It's kind of like how you were saying, like, oh, if it's like an insanely hard boss, kind of like Red, where it's kind of like mindless and brainless, where you're just grinding, then there's really no point, right? Like for you, that's from what I'm understanding from your perspective. But then this boss pretty much would teach you, okay, what is the how does this system work? Okay, so what do I need to do to beat this boss by, for example, you know the idea of buffs and debuffs, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's huge, and that's a whole mathematical concept I could possibly go in as well. Because when you also mentioned Pokemon too, like competitive, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of the same way where I can't really look.
I'll definitely see it.
It's like you know how you're kind of gearing up into thinking like you know, EVs, IVs, you know, stuff like that. You know, you already know. So those things, yeah, like, so this game likes to kick you in the face, where it's like, all right, this game is not the hardest, but it is very, very challenging, where you are very, very likely to lose the first fight to this guy. And the reason why is because of that element of surprise. You know, that's why I really do like this game as well.
Okay, I'll see.
Where I'm like sitting down,
and that's particularly why I like turn-based games. Because I can weigh my decisions and I know when a fight is lost, even if I'm like halfway through, because I can see that, oh hey, the guy completely outstats me. Right? Something like that. And like in my head, it's like I could go for, because like this is the term that I got from an early Genshin theory crafter. They call it the cheap deeps mentality. Does that click anything to you? Or?
Oh no,
okay.
it
so
doesn't.
Cheap.
But I think
I'm gonna spell it in your chat so that you can see it as well on the chat sees it. They call it the cheap deeps, but the reason why they call it cheap deeps is it literally just means cheap DPS. Cheap DPS stands for what is the bare minimum that I need to clear a hard content. And I'll put it back into Genshin back really quickly. The cheap deeps content is like the similar theory on why my Eula sits on level 70 out of 18. I don't need to fully max her out, because her being in that state is more than perfectly enough to clear the content that I need her for. So similarly, if I see a content that like just slaps me in the face because it's too hard, I will very likely resort to cheap deeps. So we'll see how that goes.
I see.
So you're telling me that there's this boss, right? Okay, so I'll likely check which strategies will give me the most out of the same amount of effort, time, and resources invested.
Do you like?
That's my main philosophy.
Oh, sorry. Keep going. Sorry.
No, that was the end of it.
Oh, okay. So do you like going in prepared in terms of like the challenge, or do you like looking it up where you're like, okay, so how am I going to tackle this boss? This person warned me about it, and I'm going to look it up. What type of gamer are you?
Typically, I like going in blind first. That's like in my Pokemon adventure. Like whenever I'm playing a ROM hack or something, I don't look up guides. I just like literally walk in a boss, and if I die, I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, and then now you're like, okay, how do I think? Because it was funny because how I got into this game first was looking like so I kind of like that challenge of Pokemon where it's like where you're like, okay, I like turn-based too, but a lot of people don't like turn-based. That's the first thing I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people don't like turn-based nowadays, apparently. So
that's
yeah. So pretty much when it came to this game, I feel like this one would be right up your alley, because it's like, it's kind of like there's like, and it's also very thoughtful too, where, you know, such a very simple concept that you could think is simple, could also be very, very different, and that's why I would not different, much more difficult than it seems. Like later on in the road, or on the road, pretty much.
Right.
And then that's like perfectly what this game kind of explains. But then there's a lot of pros and cons to it, and I can literally go over it for days. But essentially, like this specific boss kind of like I said, kicks you in the face, where it's like, especially if you decide to play it on hard mode, which everyone is like, you play it on hard mode, you're a madman, pretty much, especially if you start in the beginning. And if you do that, I wish you good luck, good sir. Because yeah, it is a nightmare, essentially.
We'll see. I'll probably get picked like 5 times before I figure it out, maybe more.
Because
Maybe more, yeah.
Yeah, because
So
sometimes
we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll do the bare minimum.
because like sometimes also you could this is why you know how you kind of stop a fight, or how you were explaining how you would stop a fight before you get into it, right? So this game has that RNG aspect where it could actually matter, where you that small amount of time that you have could actually beat the boss, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that small amount of like that small window that you thought you would have lost isn't actually lost, because there's always that RNG factor in it, you know. So that's also something I wanted to mention. But yeah, that's something that I think that you would enjoy.
Oh, minor amount of RNG is perfectly fine for me. I mean, we both played Pokemon, and we've had to toy with some RNG at some point.
Yeah.
Within a Pokemon battle.
I'm not
so
gonna...
yeah, like your moves missing, your moves critting, like those things. Yeah, so like in my head, it's like I like creating decisions that are not particularly scripted. So like dynamic decision making. So for example, in Pokemon, right? Like because sometimes you can crit, you can plan your moves like 2-3 turns ahead, but when somebody weird happened, like your move missed, you're gonna have to rechange everything up. So I like those dynamic things, and like the reason why I like turn-based games that are not time gated is because I can, literally just pause the game whenever I really need to do something, like leave it on the turn itself, or like do my time with a little bit of reading, a little bit of a decision-making help that I may need to be able to tackle this challenge better. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be seeing that game very soon when my PSP arrives from because I will be CFWing it. I'm not gonna say what CFW means. But
I know what it is. But yeah, if you definitely try it, I'd definitely love to watch you not necessarily like you. I don't think you won't be streaming it, but I'd love to like listen to you or something when you're playing. You're like, oh no, it's kind of like. It's kind of sometimes bullshit, because it's kind of like, have you ever played the Pokemon Battle Tower before, or Battle Frontier? Battle Frontier, I mean, like just in general. Have you ever tried it? And not in like Emerald, but like I mean, technically in Emerald.
I have. Okay, so I think I have a funny story on that one. In the Pokemon Fire Red, right? Because me and my friend were basically just playing it as casually as possible. And then we took with us a Charizard, and then a bunch of legendary birds, or basically a flying type team.
Yeah.
And then the very last challenge of the Battle Frontier in that era, I think it was Battle Power for Fire Red, was a Snorlax with a move called Rollout, which is a rock type move, which basically just decimated our entire team.
Yeah.
And we were all like, "Ha, I see."
Oh man, I'm trying to think. Was it? Because I don't know if it was Fire Red. That sounds like something Annabelle would use in Emerald. If I'm not mistaken. Because I remember she had a Snorlax, but I think she used like Sleep Talk Rest. But we can get into that later. I don't know if it's like, was that Fire Red? I can't remember.
I don't know, but I think that one was like literally just for the Porygon evolvement in Pokemon Fire Red. They literally had a hard time because it has Snorlax with a rollout, and we couldn't do anything to it.
Someone in my chat says hello. Zumaku says hello to you.
Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back.
So like this goes into the last 2 sections. The last section I want to talk about kind of will be a wild card in this podcast, I guess. But then this is the second to last one. So in terms of a game, what would you say are your favorite games of all time? So like top 5 games of all time, in your opinion.
I have games that you probably have never heard of. Right, so the top was actually like, literally just Pokemon, because Pokemon is literally life for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is this game called Chaos Rings, which is from Square Enix, the same developer company as Final Fantasy. I've never actually played like other Final Fantasy games, but that is one of the reasons why I kind of want to go back to it. Oh, hello, hi. So yeah, the Chaos Rings is effectively just it kind of is like Pokemon. Essentially, it's turn-based. You walk around in an open world, and then when you fight an enemy, it's suddenly a turn-based game. So there's that, and then I also like for once in a while I would play random games off of the internet, but the ones that I can think of are chess. I play that too, so there's also another turn-based game. And then once in a while I will play real-time game, Genshin Impact, for example. And then currently I am playing this game called, I keep forgetting this game style, I don't know why, but I play it on like almost a daily. Guardian Tales. There we go. Guardian Tales.
I don't know why that name sounds
games,
familiar.
You probably don't know what they are, because I generally tend to avoid like platform games. Because I just don't buy platforms. I just play on the PC or my iPad, or basically either a phone game or a PC game. And then even on PC games, too cheap to buy an game. Mainly because I don't have the time. Because again, as I mentioned, right, like my work involves me actually needing to go out and then do other things. So I generally don't have time to play games. And the reason why I got hooked on turn-based games is because anytime I can just pause the game where the turn ended.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So those are my top games. Like, you probably don't know most of them though.
Okay. So in terms of Pokemon, since that's the one that's most familiar to me, have you ever tried the newer ones, or you're like no?
No, I physically stopped with Black and White too. Nintendo DS. From that one onwards, that's when I started. Like, that's when I stopped having time. I bought a 3DS, but I gave it to my younger brother instantly because I just did not have the time. Yeah. I don't know where he put the 3DS though. Yes, I got him Pokemon Y. And then I was telling him that now is a really good time to CFW your thing, so you can get all the other games that came after Y within the 3DS system. Like, it is kind of told that. And then I was intending to buy Switch so I could play the Switch games. Because I also want to try those out, but really just don't have
the time. Yeah. Interesting.
Because to me, whenever I do, because like right now my time is consumed between either work, sleep, or streaming Genshin Impact, and I stream almost daily.
I see.
And on the times that I am free, I basically just watch Netflix, because like, and in my head, when I told my mom about it, like I told her that, hey mom, I have a Netflix subscription on my own. I'm not gonna use yours anymore. That's when I started having my own money for buying my own things.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then she asked me, okay, so how's your Netflix? Because she bought a family. She's paying for a family one, so that's shared between me, my brothers, and so on and so on. And she asked me about my own thing, and I was like, I'm not really using it as much anymore. So I'm mainly using my free time not to watch it because my mother's probably gonna scold me about the money.
Yeah.
Asian family, basically.
Yeah,
I come from an Asian family.
Yeah. No, I get it. I don't know. When you said Asian family, I'm like, oh no, I get it.
Everything suddenly clicked. There you go.
I was
everything
like, oh.
Suddenly clicked.
Oh no. Yeah, whenever someone mentions like, because I'm Asian too, so whenever they're like, oh yeah, well, I come from an Asian family, I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Right. So it kind of just clicks, right? When you mention the term Asian family, I think everyone just suddenly gotcha.
Yeah. Either be like, gotcha, or they're like, oh no.
Right.
So those so the games that you mentioned that were more niche, do you mind telling me the title again and kind of explaining?
Right.
Those?
So the games that you probably didn't know were Chaos Rings and Guardian Tales.
Are those from what platform are they on?
They're both mobile platforms because that was the time where it's a funny story because my phone got stolen at the time. Well, I started Chaos Rings when my phone got stolen, and I had an iPod Touch. The older days of mobile. So yeah, I had an iPod Touch, and then I was able to get my hands on Chaos Rings. It's no longer in the App Store, unfortunately. If you really want to play it, you're gonna have to do other things to play it, probably on an Android phone or not an emulator. Chaos Rings is have you played the older Final Fantasy games where you basically just slightly walk around in an open world, and then suddenly when the battle comes up, it's turn-based. Like
Yeah,
you could
I played
use
part of
items.
7. Yeah, I played part of
Right,
7.
Ooh,
Yeah.
7's yeah, something like that. So Chaos Rings is a very similar battle. That kind of is the idea. You're walking around in an open world, and then you have a story that you're playing through. Typically speaking, just like Final Fantasy games, you could have multiple ways to reach an ending. Because multiple different builds, so on and so on. That's why there's a lot of replayability with the games. So those are the games I typically tend to enjoy. Games with one turn-based or just real-time that I do actually enjoy with replayability. That's the general concept of it. I've stopped playing Chaos Rings since like 2014, but I've been playing it since like 2012, like all the way to 2014, like 2 years in a row. Just play it, different ending every time. So on and so on. And then Guardian Tales is just a casual game now. I just picked it up because I was watching the streamer, and then they're like sponsoring, like they were being sponsored to advertise the game, and then I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. And then it's a really good pastime. I actually just say on a trip, and then I'm not the one driving. That would be the game of choice that I would probably spend my time on. Something along those lines.
I see.
But other than that, I mainly just spend my time nowadays mainly on Genshin Impact, ROM hacks on Pokemon, mainly the GBA ones. I've been playing a lot of weird ROM hacks on Pokemon recently, and then once in a while I'll hop into chess, but I'm very bad at it.
I see.
Oh, there's that.
Okay. So this is kind of a subsection before we go to our wild card section. I guess it's not really a wild card, but we'll see. But this is what I want to talk about. So do you watch anime, and if you do, what are your favorites?
Oh, I do watch anime. Actually, I started as a manga reader. No, I started as an anime, and then this all started with Naruto. Like I watched Naruto, and then Shippuden, and then when Shippuden was first coming out, I could not wait the next week to watch the next episode. So I started reading the manga, and I fell into the rabbit hole of also doing the same thing to basically everything else. Bleach, One Piece, all these things. I started reading them in the manga form. But then recently I talked about the Netflix incident with my mother, so that's where I started watching anime, is because I am paying for a Netflix subscription, and I'm not necessarily using it. So if I were to talk about my favorite ones, usually I watch the anime that I don't read as a manga unless somebody convinces me to watch the anime. The reason for this is because I since the manga is generally ahead in the storyline, I kind of know what's happening already. It's not a good thing for me to watch the anime anymore, unless if the animation is just really, really good. So recently I've been really hooked with Demon Slayer, both in the anime and the manga. I only watch the episodes of the anime of fight scenes. I don't watch anything that isn't a fight scene. Real Prodigy or gotcha, coffee face tight. Okay, so there's that, and then I also have a bunch of series that people probably do not know about, and then I just I just wake up 2 years later, and then suddenly these series that I've been reading have been turned into anime. Some of them would be Rising of the Shield Hero. I read it like when it only had like 20 chapters out, and then now it's like hundreds of chapters, and now it's actually getting like a couple of seasons in.
Yeah.
Spy X Family being one of them. What else? Yeah, so those things are the ones that I like. Do you have any other preferences? Like maybe we could. My question was, right? The question was which anime started really good and ended really bad, or basically just went from a downhill. I have a lot on this list. I currently have 8 in my list right now.
Ooh.
But you can give me like 1 or 2 from your opinion. You can kind of talk about it.
Started really.
How about yeah.
I guess one would be Attack on Titan.
Oh yes, that hits right on the mark.
man, there's just a lot. There's just a lot I can. I'd have to go through the book and see like. But Attack on Titan's one that's like. Meant they said Promise Never. I've never watched it, but no. I heard a lot of people complain about Promise Neverland.
And that's actually my top. Yeah, that's like literally on the top of my list. It's like the number one on my list. Right? Like it started really good. As in, like I was super instantly hooked after I read the first 3 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And then like after the first arc, it just kind of died for me, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Have you heard of the Fire Force ending?
I haven't actually watched. Okay, actually,
I probably shouldn't be talking about this because it's getting anime. So like,
I mean, it's fine. It's more of like because the whole purpose of the podcast isn't supposed to be like, oh, you need to talk about Genshin. It's more like kind of like learning about you. So I think this is kind of like in line instead of like yeah. So I think it's in line.
Yeah, on my end, I really. So on the anime side of things, my preferences on anime is literally just character development. I don't care about character strengths. I think some YouTubers have these type of content where they would just rate characters based off of their strength in the arc.
Yeah.
Right? So like top 10 strongest villains in this anime series, like I don't really care about those stuff. Like what I care about is literally character development.
Mm-hmm. So
when I see an anime that starts really good in terms of character development, and ends really horribly, just slam myself on the desk real hard. But that's also particularly why I have this. I used to have this thing where I really liked reading about overpowered isekais.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Wherein like the character gets reincarnated as an incredibly powerful unit, and at that point you already know because they are the strongest character.
Mm-hmm.
Like what will the author do with that knowledge? That's also why I like One Punch Man, because One Punch, like Saitama himself is the strongest character, but then like they turned him into a comedy quality guy, right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. Those are the things that I really, really, really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like the what do you call it? Shingeki no Kyojin, because like the reason why I hated Shingeki no Kyojin is like it followed a specific trend that I really hated, wherein the character starts weak and then they just slowly creep into the strongest and strongest and strongest until they enter God mode.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go into full God mode, it's like basically nothing can stop them, or like a very specific wild card is necessary to stop them. And at that point, like when you see a character just go slowly creep into God mode and God mode, it's like you can already see where it's going, right? So because you can already see the ending, then it's like, how is that enjoyable?
Yeah.
At least that's how I saw the Shingeki no Kyojin ending. If you guys saw it differently, that's perfectly fine too.
You know,
especially since there were memes about how I got reincarnated into a bird. Yeah?
I don't know why. It's really funny because I remember I kind of have that same outlook on you, like in terms of I can't remember. It was like this guy. Yeah, no, I can't remember the anime name, but it was just this guy who came in OP, and then he's like, "Hey, yo," like I don't know, I really enjoy it. Like people always have this set of, I'm a very, in terms of perspective, I'm a very open perspective guy. Unless it's like very, very extreme, where it's like very disturbing, like that's something I can't handle in real life, where I'd be like, that's terrible, you know, but.
Right.
For example, like when people try to judge like very, very like for example anime in general, about like for example Shingeki no Kyojin, for example, is a good one. Like how people were like, oh, it's so good, like for example, right? And then they also kind of had that perspective probably also because of the media as well. They're like, oh, this must be good, and then. It's like when you get into a game or an anime and then you say it's good, then it's gonna be good. You know what I mean? Like you'll always have that like perspective unless there's some specific incident where you're like, hell no, that's terrible. You know, that's kind of the outlook that I have with anything in life, but especially when I watch that, tying into your the whole anime thing about like, for example, how people would call the stuff that you kind of mentioned kind of like trashy isekais or whatever. That's what they would call them, like the general public. But personally, I kind of have that same thing where I'm like, Yeah, what would they do when they're already on top? So there was this like other anime that I watched. I can't remember where like, no, that was Overlord. Never mind, there's a different one. Damn, I can't remember the other one. But this guy was essentially.
The Overlord was a funny one to me, but it kind of died on me, unfortunately. It was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but it was like a different one where like I can't remember what it's called. Damn, I'm trying to remember, but essentially he got reincarnated and he's like the strongest character, etc. But then people like it's just really funny people's reactions where they're like, "Oh, you're this self-proclaimed god?" No, and they just don't believe him. I just find that very hysterical. I don't know that I personally enjoy it, where they're like, "There's no way that you're him," you know what I mean? It's been years.
I think there's one.
Yeah,
I think it's a.
I can't remember what it's called. I think you know what I mean.
The Misfit from a Demon Academy.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I don't know. I found that very entertaining. I don't know. It was just very entertaining. Now, it's really funny when people judge anime tastes. It's funny because they're like, "Oh, it needs to have that nice character development." Pretty much anything with anime taste. Yeah, like I'm just like, I mean, I just sit down, and enjoy it like for what it is. You know, like you know how people debate like, "What's the best anime of all time?" That's like. It just depends, you know. Someone could be like a rom-com.
I don't like answering that question.
Yeah, I don't like answering that question either because I'm like, I don't have one. It's like if someone asked me what was my favorite games, I could probably give them my top games of all time. Where I'm like, I really enjoyed these, and like that's how I kind of phrase it. Like, what are your top 5 games of all time? When I asked you, because you know, each one is very different from another. You know, like especially when it comes to nuances, like people would deem I hate turn-based, but sometimes there are different nuances into that turn-based that make it completely different. That's why you enjoy it. So, yeah, when it comes to, on
mine, like, whenever somebody talks about the top 5 anime, when I get asked, when I get asked about my top 5 anime, I always say, you're more than free to disagree, but here's how I like my shows, right? So, like, it goes back, I guess, to what type of person I am, wherein I'd like to be able to decide my things. And it's like, similarly, right? You're free to disagree with my taste of anime, and that's perfectly fine by me. But here's my take on it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are very sensitive. I think like a lot of people are very
interesting how to, like, you know, this is also how you get anime recommendations. This is also how you get anime recommendations, where like if somebody tells you an anime you've never heard about, hey, let's go check it out. Watch the first few episodes or something. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, that's like
that's my take on it.
No, because I have a very similar like mindset to yours. Like, because when someone's like tells me that they recommend me something, it's like when someone thinks that something is the best of all time and they explain it, but everything it kind of segues back into that question when I asked you about perfection. There's really no perfect thing. Like, at least for me, this is my perspective on like the idea of perfect. It's like if something was perfect, like what you said, everything would be perfect. Like everyone would be perfect, and then. Life would be boring. But also there's always a pro and a con to everything, which I believe that I think you understand as well. Like there's like a pro and a con to like everything that we do or etc. So it's the same thing with anime. When people are like, oh, this is the shittiest anime, I don't know why. Like even if someone says this is like the worst of all time, I'm able to sit down and be like, yeah, this is actually like in this aspect is pretty good, but everything else might be not my cup of tea. But I don't really say something's bad. You know what I mean? It's kind of like having that open mindset instead of that closed mindset. I don't know why. Yeah, this stream is dying. I don't know what someone's doing downstairs, but I think you can still hear me. But I can still hear. It's perfectly fine by me. I don't know. I just have a very open mindset when it comes, and I think you have that same thing.
How about the how like no anime is exactly bad?
Oh, I just feel like I always find I always find something.
I'd like to keep an open mind on a lot of things.
Yeah. Like unless it's like something that's like flat out wrong, like I'm not gonna delve into it, but like if something was like flat out wrong that in our society that would be like, yeah, that's bad, like that's like genuinely like wrong, then I would be like voicing up. But if it's like something that's like very nuanced, I'm like, oh, I guess, you know. And I think you have that same mindset on it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
generally, yeah, that is how I see things.
And then now, I guess since it's almost time, but this is the last wild card section. But it's not really a wild card section. But I called it wild card because it starts with the W. So, who are your top 5 waifus, or your top waifu of all time? And if you can, explain why.
Like anime or
anything. Like you can do. Okay, first I guess start with Genshin.
That's a very
start with Genshin, and then the next one will be
Okay, so for Genshin, my top 5 waifu of all time is probably. Okay, I think Genshin is pretty easy. It's probably Lisa. What's her name? Yaemiko. I think that's about it. Honestly, that's about it. Like, the reason I like Lisa is because he enjoyer book reader. Yaemiko is basically publisher and witty publisher of all time.
I see.
Like, I have this thing for like characters that have a tendency to be actually on the side, but like when you read into their lore, they're actually very interesting characters. Like I know that Yaemiko is not a side character; she's very much in the limelight, but like people just trim for her based on the design, but not actually read into the character, and that's pretty funny to me. Okay, so for anime, I think the very first. Forgot I was gonna. God, I had it in my head, but like for some reason I lost track of. Oh, Nico Robin is probably from One Piece.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. Okay.
The reason for. Yeah, there's that, and then... What's next? God, like, I don't have a... This is such a hard question. Holy moly. How do I even begin to answer this question? So there's Nico Robin from One Piece, so I'm scrolling through my entire manga list. What else? Let me just very quickly scroll through my manga list so I can remember who's who. No, so hard. Actually, so. Have you watched the anime called Gate?
I've heard of it. I heard it's really good.
Right, so I forgot the name of the character, but like the deaf demigod, the gothic Lolita that's carrying a scythe.
Oh wait! I think I know who you're talking about. Hold on.
That because like the way that it's like she's a 1,000-year-old. Alright, she's a 1,000-year-old demigod, and then the way she when she went into Earth, she started calling someone like a fully grown adult an Ojo-sama. And then the adult was getting insulted because I'm not a child. You're the child. And then the demigod was like, I'm 1,000 years old. And I think that's pretty funny. So that specific character.
Okay, okay. I think I found it.
That character, because she's so witty and it's so funny at the same time. Right.
Hard, huh?
Sumi from Kanojo no Orishima's
a Sumi fan.
The silent girl. The girl that types everything in the phone. Yeah, Sumi's great. What do you mean? What else? Okay, so from Solo Leveling, the B rank healer. I forgot her name again. I'm so sorry. I'm very bad with the names of the character of the anime I watch or manga I read because there's just way too many of them. Okay, so you read Solo Leveling by any chance?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, but for those of you that have, it's the B rank healer. Basically, she's the first waifu you will see
Hold on, let's
with
see.
the MC. And that they kind of... I'm pretty sad because like they were supposed to go on a date, but then she literally just got scrapped. Like you'll never see her again in the entire story after they said that they're gonna go on a date. Because like the girl was going to retire as a hunter, so she gave her personal details to the MC, and then they were supposed to go on a like they were supposed to see each other so on and so on. And then suddenly she just got scrapped for the actual waifu of the MC, which is kind of sad, but it's really interesting to me. So there's that, and then I would suppose that I have a bunch of other manga or anime that never showed up. Who else? I guess that's it for now. I don't really... to me, I don't really do the waifu on the anime, unfortunately, unless their character just completely stands out to me. Right.
Interesting.
Oh no! I got this one. This one is probably a bit more S-Death. Do you know who that is? If I mention that name?
Yes, I do.
S-Death from Akame ga Kill.
Yeah, I know S-Death.
And the reason for this is I don't like sadistic girls, but like if you read into her backstory on how she ended up being like that, yeah.
Are you talking about manga or anime?
So that, the manga variant. It's like
Okay.
the Akame ga Kill anime is very different from the manga.
Yeah, it is.
apparently.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Very different. The endings are very different.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's that.
Okay, that's really funny how you mentioned S-Death. Okay.
Well, is there a follow-up question? I feel like there's a follow-up question.
No, it's not. It's not really a
Yeah,
follow-up
he's
question.
all very.
It's like,
Oh, damn it.
my husband
I was
from
like,
Yusei is Yusei
so-
from Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh, nice. Okay, sorry. I cut you off. What were you saying? Let's see. Electro
Oh, no, I'm good.
Catalyst
That
Mom.
was it. I was just reading it now as well.
Prixivus said Electro Catalyst Mommy. Oh, that's funny. Sorry.
Oh, your Catalyst
funny.
Mommies. Also, the fun fact is that I didn't get the Aimiko, unfortunately, because I got a Jane. And I was like, if I'm not getting AI Miko, I'm not getting AI Miko. I'm just gonna go for Ayato.
Oh, okay.
Free to play live.
Oh man. I wish my stream wasn't like it's like really choppy.
Unfortunately.
But like I'll probably solve
Oh,
that later.
I guess here's wait. I've only mentioned 4. I think this is the last one that I have. Is the yeah. Oh, is that? Yeah, okay. So the last,
no.
I guess, if I were to name one last waifu, from Bungo Stray Dogs, the what's her name? The healer person, the one that chainsaws you before she heals you.
Oh my god!
Because
Okay.
I think that's pretty funny.
You need to recommend me
Because
some
like the
stuff
scenes
because
right
you're like,
before she heals.
hold on, all the stuff that you're.
Oh,
all
okay.
the, all
Have
the,
you watched Bungo Stray Dogs?
I have not. See, here's the thing. You're mentioning all the all the animes that I completely forgot about that I was gonna watch. That like you're bringing it up now.
Oh,
So
no,
like after
I
this,
see,
you
I
need
see.
to like after this, you need to
I
like
see,
give
I
me your
see.
list because like I'm getting like flashbacks where I'm like, damn, I forgot about that. Like I should have watched that, you know? Then I'm like, damn, you know, like when I have my free time and stuff. Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. After this you gotta you gotta send me your
Okay,
list of
so,
like recommendations. Cause
yeah.
like, damn, okay. What does she look like in Bungo Stray Dogs?
Oh, you want the waifu heavy ones or just anime in general?
I mean, like you're the one that you
Bungo-
mentioned.
wait, let me just Google her image real quick. Right. Here. I'll just copy this image real quick and then send it to your DMs. Here. This is her character.
And oh
He
yeah,
basically okay, like whenever, because she's a healer, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then whenever she heals, like this type of scene shows up. It's funny because I might have to spoil it if I explain why. But yeah, I guess
okay.
that's that. But she's not actually an evil character. This just shows up because like that's how everyone else sees her when she's about to heal someone.
I don't, okay, so also the main reason why I asked like what people's like top waifus are is because it kind of shows what they're kind of into, you know. So it's like it's very interesting. Okay, so you said so it's funny because you said as death. So backstory. Okay.
Wait. What kind of answers have you received from this one? Yeah, this is pretty fun. Backstory, basically.
Interesting. Oh my gosh, well, you know, because I was gonna say like.
I'd like to know yours. Give me something. Give me something to work on.
Oh, you mean for me? Oh wait, is my
yeah. What about yours? Give me good ones.
Okay. Okay. So this is gonna be long, I guess. Okay, so if we're talking about Genshin,
give me three, just three. Yeah, Genshin waifu.
Okay, so if we're talking about, I mean, technically it's all time too. Technically, if we're talking about all time number one, I would have to say, like, even though I've watched quite a bit of anime, read a bunch of stuff, I would say Eula. She is my favorite, and there's like a multitude of reasons for that. So it's funny because the first time I saw her character, because I really value character development and the actual like character herself. So I remember the first time when I was pulling for her. So I know you haven't played Persona, but you've probably heard of the character. So like Makoto Nijima, for example, she was like my number one for a bit. It was like
I probably have not. I don't have any idea much of.
So if you look up P5 Makoto, you can like look up what she looks like. She kind of looks a little similar to what the character you just sent me looks like. So that's why I was like, okay, interesting, your taste. So like I can see it.
Yeah, she actually does.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's why it's very interesting. That's why I like asking people's tastes. 'Cause I'm like, okay, so I can kind of see, because what people don't notice with their waifus, husbandos, etc., is that they kind of have like a similar pattern or trait that kind of like you can grab onto, you know, that you're like, yeah, I like that, you know. So yeah, so it was like Makoto, and the only reason why I actually did this whole thing with like the whole like Makoto thing was because of I hated her character in the beginning, but like later on, you know, because I don't want to spoil you if you ever play the game, but later on I'm like, damn, there was a scene where I'm like, damn, that's cool. So but then this is where I started getting into Genshin. My friend was like, oh dude, you have to play Genshin, and when it came out, and I was like, hell no, I have school. I was like, hell no, I have school. So I started around January, but then it was May when I think it was like Zhongli was about to be done, and then Eula first came out, and then I heard, oh, Eula's Japanese VA was Eula's Japanese VA was what was it called? Makoto's VA too. So I was like, all right, fair enough. If I get Eula, cool. You know, like then I'll start playing the game. You know, I kind of need that like that instance where I'm like, okay, now I'll play the game, because I didn't really find that choice, like that the time. Motivation. Yeah, the motivation, because I'm like, okay, Genshin is cool. But there's like real life, you know what I mean? Well, I'm like, all right, I gotta kind of pick what I need to do, etc. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, in terms of like Eula seems cool, and then like I don't know, it's something where I hate something, but then like it somehow turns into like me really liking the character. So with her, it's like, oh my gosh, she's such a tsundere. When I saw her, I'm like, oh, she's so tsundere, and I'm like, ugh. And then like after I started understanding her backstory and stuff, so, and the reason why I really like her character is because like her whole backstory, I don't know if you know too much of her like backstory, but it kind of reminded me of my own personal life and my struggles dealing with I guess being an outcast, being kind of like tossed aside, essentially, like completely like like by essentially everyone, where I couldn't really like make friends, etc. So I was like, damn, you know. And then there was like this whole like YouTube video about Eula too, kind of summing it up. Some of it was false, but like there was like a part where she's like kind of like sitting down alone in a tree and stuff, and I'm like, dang, she is like, it's just like stuff that you can kind of like relate to type of thing. So I was like, damn, I really like Eula, like her character. Then I kept reading on her, and then I'm like, okay, she keeps getting better, even though it's like she's kind of like a side character, like you said, kind of like more of a side character, and a lot of people hate her too, which is funny. Like Twitter tried to cancel her, so that makes it even more funny.
Yeah.
So I'm literally sitting there, and I'm like, so I grew like I didn't really like dislike her character. Like I was like, okay, a tsundere character, fine. But then after, I'm like, oh my gosh, her character, I really like it. And then when it kind of shows her character development, because character development is very big for me as well, where it showed in the Albedo event, and then it kind of showed like later on when she showed up, where she started to kind of like lighten up. And then, you know, how as the joke, Auntie Eula, you know what I think you probably played the event, the whole like how they were like, oh, Auntie Eula, and she didn't say vengeance or whatever, and then she kind of explained her own outlook, like, oh, he wasn't really, he doesn't really know what the Lawrence clan is and stuff like that. And this it kind of like speaks to me too, because it's scary, because whenever I look at her stuff, I'm like, damn, that happened to me too. Where I was like feeling like really down on someone who came in, and then it's like it's like kind of looking in a mirror type of thing. That's why I really like her character. And she just keeps like, if she had more development and stuff, I feel like she would be a really well written character that I really enjoy. And then I really do like her English dub voice actor too, because I think she really portrays the character well as well, especially in those sad scenes. If you know the drunk,
I cannot relate much because I use the Chinese.
Oh, okay. So like the drunk Eula one, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, because like I was like, that kind of like set it in where where I'm like, yep, she's on the pedestal. I don't think like anyone's gonna remove her from it, because there's a certain like connection when you have a character. If you can kind of like, this is what I kind of view, like if you can kind of get a connection with you and a character, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, that's kind of like she's kind of like solidified that place as number one. But like all the other characters and waifus and stuff, I'm kind of like, cool, but I'm like, yeah, but let's see, besides Eula, I would say Shenhe. I really like Shenhe. She's cool. I really liked her story quest.
Shenhe is love. I like the what do you call it? The Noel hangout one.
I haven't done that yet, so I need to like get on
Where
it.
basically you just walk around doing errands, and she's ridiculously powerful, but she's I'm not speaking anymore. I need to not speak anymore at this point, if that's the case.
Yeah, I'll probably play it. It's because like, damn, I
these
gotta
are my
play more
Wii
Genshin.
Okay, I'll send you some of the list of the stuff I can recommend.
And then, man, and then there's just so many. I can't really like. But Eula, pretty much just Eula's at the top of everything for me, at least. She's like, and also, I guess I'll talk about it to you if you have some time after stream. Some cool stuff. But
I may have to get lunch as well after, or maybe another day.
I'm trying to remember what other. I'm trying to remember what other characters. There's so many. I don't know. But in terms of Genshin, I would say Eula, Shenhe, Jean.
Mommy is like.
Yeah, Jean is third, I would say, and then it would be like. God, okay, so here's the thing. If Sarah got more, like I haven't caught up too much. I still need to play. This sounds sad as a main Genshin guy, but Sarah, if Sarah just got like some development. To be honest,
my life was also very limited.
Huh? Oh wait, you cut out.
Oh
wait,
yeah, go for it.
Oh, no, because you cut out. You cut out.
I wasn't saying much.
Oh, okay. So Yeah, it would be like Sara. It would be kind of like a mix of like the fourth place with like Sara, Raiden type, like where I'm kind of like on the fancy eye. That would be kind of my like fourth. But yeah, those three characters pretty much speak out to me, I would say, for Genshin wise. And oh my god, why is the stream like this? But yeah, any other waifus you can think about?
Oh, just Wi-Fi.
Ah, I see. Okay, so
waifu.
So you're still like big Lisa still, big Lisa. But yeah,
like, to me, the funniest thing about the Lisa, I would suppose, is literally just I have this thing where I really hate it when somebody touches my stuff and doesn't put it back.
Yeah.
And you know, when you first do the Lisa story, you probably I don't know if anyone remembers, because it's one of the earlier stories in Genshin Impact where
it's the book
if
one.
you do the Lisa story quest, she's collecting the book and she really hates it when her books aren't being brought back.
Yeah.
So like I think that's the part that really made me like, like it's not about the books, but it's more of like when somebody does return my stuff, I get mad.
Oh, you mean kind of like, yeah, no, I kind of get
that. Really funny for me. Like, especially the way that they described it when Lisa, like, because like the NPCs described when Lisa gets mad, like all hell breaks loose apparently.
Yeah.
And that to me, I found it really funny.
I see. So you okay? I get it.
And then the reason why I like I Met Migo is basically, you know, Raiden Shogun is supposed to be this one scary god.
Yeah.
And then Yamika's kind of just like there, hello, hi, I'm here, you don't need to touch me, and you can't ever actually try and hurt me, but I can invade your world and be like, haha. So I was like, to me that's really funny. Because basically they just have a striking feature.
Yeah, no, I get it. I gotta catch up with Genshin. School is like, but yeah, man, I kind of want, like, maybe I should have pulled for Yai.
Don't worry about it. Take your time. This doesn't go away.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for this.
Miko's a fun and balanced character, honestly.
I actually haven't because people always complain about her, so I don't really know too much about like DPS wise and stuff.
One theory crafter put it this way, and I think so the way that we look at her is basically, one, she's a balanced character that feels clunky, and then two, that feels clunky to play. And that when you see a 5-star character, you expect them to be just outright strong, or at least that's what's currently happening. So when you put the balanced character with doesn't feel fun to play aspect, everyone starts thinking she's a weak, and that she has a lot of problems, so on and so on. The nuances start kicking in. Like basically, she has a lot of nuances going, but those nuances don't exactly give her the power.
Yeah.
You know the Eula, Beidou, so on and so on, right? There are a lot of nuances, but it's a strong team.
Yeah.
For Yamiko, there are a lot of nuances, but she's a balanced character. So people have that perception that she's weak, but mathematically speaking, she's actually fine. Like, she's not a bad unit, not necessarily strong either. You play her because she's a waifu. I don't like that aspect about it, honestly. I don't want them, because the way that I see it is like they keep making balanced characters or in a different way, like different playstyle, different balances, or they start power creeping. Between making a side grade, multiple variations of a side grade, or constantly making upgrades, I think I'd rather have the side grades. So at the very least, when somebody asks me, is this character good, I can just tell them it's balanced. I'm not gonna say good, but it's balanced.
I see. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much.
So no, you're not particularly missing much from a meta standpoint, but from a gameplay. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Honestly, I should have picked Yai. I should have got Yai.
Okay.
I'm kind of mad. But yeah. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to stream? Because I'm gonna.
I got that. Okay.
Oh wait, you cut out. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I cut out. Do you have anything else to say to this stream, or?
No, it's alright. That's pretty much it. I guess if you guys are, interested in thoughts with the Ayato, we'll see when he comes out, I guess. That's about it. That's all I really had to say. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, thank you for, giving your time to come in. This was really fun, and oh wait, I don't know, my internet's dying. Sorry, I don't know if you heard the last part. Oh yeah, would you be interested in doing this later on in the future?
At some point, yeah, when we have other once we have finally developed all these other anime that we need to watch first.
Okay.
But yeah, mainly I'd probably be sticking to currently Genshin.
I see.